Chapter 1608. The sword spirit's face was expressionless, and his eyes were expressionless. He was no longer worried, afraid, or in despair. Anyway, he was destined to be abandoned. What was the use of worrying? Accept your fate. You've gone through such a process many times. You've experienced too much loneliness, and you've gradually gotten used to it. But after being scattered this time, I'm afraid that I won't have a complete consciousness in this lifetime. Chu Jiang continued in a low voice. I also cherish the lives of my brothers. He paused and said, I cherish the lives of my lovers even more. And the lives of my friends. I also cherish them. Chu Jiang slowly raised his head and said, I can pay any price for these people. If you used these to threaten me to kneel just now, I would have done so. The sword spirit is just a soul. I know this. I know it better than anyone else. He exists because of this sword. I also know this. To me, he has no ability to resist. I also know this. Chu Yang's voice became low. The sword spirit's expression actually showed some confusion. But I've never treated the sword spirit as an empty soul. I've never treated him as a slave without any ability to resist. My brothers can risk their lives for me, and I can also sacrifice my life for my brothers. Chu Yang said softly. But before this, the sword spirit has saved my life countless times. He's my friend. In the past, in the present, in the future, and forever. My brothers outside are brothers, and my friends inside are also friends. Chu Yang suddenly raised his head, and his eyes revealed a threatening light. He said, If I sacrifice the sword spirit, I can easily obtain invincible strength. This choice is very easy. But I can sacrifice the sword spirit, but I definitely won't sacrifice my friends. Invincible strength, I may still have it in the future. But if I lose this friend, I won't have it anymore. Chu Jiang said seriously. I'm not the previous 8 masters of the Calamity Sword. So, I won't let the sword spirit be the sword soul. Even if I don't have a sword soul forever. I'm still Chu Jiang. The more Chu Jiang spoke, the clearer and more resolute his voice became. Also, I once promised my friend that if he could form a complete physical body one day, we would fight side by side and stand openly under the blue sky and white clouds. When he said this, the sword spirit trembled all over. However, it was not out of fear, but out of excitement. His body flickered with red light, and an extremely intense emotion seemed to be burning within him. Is this your choice? Bai Yin's eyes flashed with an indescribable light. Is this your choice? Chu Yang smiled. Yes. You don't regret it? There's no medicine for regret in this world. Bai Yin pressed. I, Chu Yang, have never regretted my actions. Chu Yang raised his sword-like eyebrows. The white shadow laughed. Good! Suddenly, he laughed loudly and rose from the ground. He actually left just like that. In that instant, he had already disappeared without a trace. All of this was like a dream. Only the white shadow's voice came from afar. Not bad, not bad. I hope you will never regret the decision you made today. I will watch you walk down this path. Chu Jiang silently said in his heart. I won't regret it. For my friend, how can I regret it? Bai Yin laughed and said, Finally, I'll tell you something good. In the tribulation space, there's a reward for you. However, you need to reach a certain level before you can take it out and use it. Ha! Little one, remember to cultivate well. Don't forget that you still have a battle with me. Chu Yang's heart sank. Even if you forget that battle, I will still stand opposite you. I will show you my sword. I will show you my moves. Bai Yin laughed loudly. His laughter shook Chu Yang's heart. His last words came from afar. Next time you see me, call me Big Brother June. Chu Yang smiled. It won't be too late to call you Big Brother after I defeat you. The white shadow's voice finally disappeared in a burst of arrogant laughter, and there was no response from him anymore. Chu Yang opened his eyes and saw the sword spirit standing in front of him. The sword spirit's face was full of excitement, and his whole body was trembling. He almost couldn't speak. Chu Yang laughed and patted his shoulder. You don't have to be so touched. I'm not that great. I don't want you to be fooled by me. Actually, I was just coaxing him to leave. I wanted that white shadow to get out of here as soon as possible. The pressure from facing him is too great. Actually, my real reason is, I want to have a real sword spirit. I want to forge a real sword spirit myself. I want to see what kind of sword spirit that can cut out murderous spirit looks like. Chu Yang smiled. Since someone can do it, I believe I can do it too. Moreover, I need my own Tao, a Tao that belongs to me. He suddenly smiled curiously and said, There's one more thing. I really want to see your appearance as a phoenix. Will you be as gorgeous as the legends say? Then he laughed. The sword spirit almost choked. He nodded repeatedly. In fact, how could he not know this? Chu Yang said this to comfort himself. He didn't want to take this matter to heart. Because, under the deterrence of the white shadow, no one could say anything that went against their heart. This was a spiritual aura that was specially set up by a powerful person. No one could avoid it. In that kind of situation, as long as one said something, it would be the truest reflection of one's heart. There was absolutely no possibility of lying. It was only in this way that Chu Yang's words were truly precious. The previous few tribulation sword masters had pondered in such a situation. They felt that they couldn't be compared to their brothers and relatives. Therefore, they chose to turn themselves into sword spirits to increase their strength. Then, they would become invincible in the world. From now on, the sword spirit will only be loyal to the sword master. I have no regrets. The sword spirit stood in front of Chu Yang solemnly, and slowly bent down seriously. At this moment, Shui Leihan's figure flashed across the sword spirit's heart. But the sword spirit didn't hesitate at all. He chose Chu Yang because Chu Yang was the sword spirit's master. More importantly, Chu Yang was his friend. Here, there was respect. The sword master said that I'm his friend. Everyone else was using me. Everyone else was trying to destroy me. Only Lord Chu Yang let me go and saved me. He even gave me unlimited hope and a future. Although I'm just a spirit, I know who's good to me and who's bad to me. I have a heart. The most important thing is that I have a friend. I have a friend, Chu Yang. The sword spirit was so excited that he almost couldn't control himself. But he saw Chu Yang touch his nose and asked himself, By the way, I don't know. Are you a male? Or a female? Do you have that thing? Get lost! The sword spirit, who was feeling touched, was fuming with anger. I'm the same as you. I'm a male. As he said, he suddenly lowered his head. Actually, I don't have that thing now. My real gender can only be revealed after my godly soul is completely condensed and I find a suitable host. But my real body is indeed, I understand. When your godly soul is fully condensed, I'll find a female phoenix for you to satisfy that thing. Chu Yang touched his chin. If that's the case, I'd rather die. You bastard! The sword spirit was furious. He didn't care whether he was a master or a friend. Ha! Chu Yang laughed. On a distant mountain top. The bet is over. The result is obvious. You've lost again. The white-robed man laughed evilly. So what if I lost? I'm more willing to accept this result than to win. The black-robed man snorted and said, You've given him all the bets, right? What do you mean? Am I the kind of person who plays tricks behind the scenes? The white-robed man felt wronged and grimaced. Aren't you? The black-robed man rolled his eyes. Am I? Aren't you? Ha! The two of them laughed at each other. This time, I've fulfilled my wish. The white-robed man smiled easily. Chu Yang's godly soul is already qualified. His temperament is also qualified. It's not easy. It's really not easy. The black-robed man sighed, which was rare. Although he's qualified, but there are also quite a number of fully qualified people who died prematurely. The white-robed man shrugged. Their deaths have nothing to do with us, that's true, but what you said is also. Forget it. Let's leave it to fate. The black-robed man turned his head and looked. There was a fluctuation in the air. The white-robed man shook his head and said speechlessly, Remember not to interfere. I know better than you. The black-robed man was a little angry. I'm just looking, just looking. Looking? You're really boring. The white-robed man rolled his eyes. I can't be bothered to be angry with you. Do what you want. Let's go. I promised my wives to bring them to my hometown to play. The white-robed man scratched his head. How many years has it been? Maybe we'll have to go back in time again. The black-robed man said mercilessly. Your wives don't seem to be simple. Do you need to do it yourself? The white-robed man snorted. I seem to remember that in my hometown, someone was beaten to the point of running away in a sorry state. The black-robed man was furious. Fuck your mother's bullshit. I was shifting my strategy at that time. If I meet that guy from back then again, I'll definitely beat him to the point of looking for his teeth on the ground. The white-robed man shrugged his shoulders and said mockingly, Yes, if you can't beat him to the point of looking for his teeth on the ground, you'll shift your strategy again, right? The black-robed man was furious. Why do I find you so unpleasant? You provoke me again and again. Do you want to fight? I don't dare, I don't dare. I'm too scared of you. The white-robed man said lightly. Do you want to look for his teeth at my place first? You know, my place is the most spotless. If it's contaminated by your teeth, it's really. The black-robed man rushed over with a punch. The white-robed man blocked it. With a swoosh, the two of them flew into the sky. Just like back then, one black and one white opposed each other. Chapter 1609. Just as Chu Yang made his final choice, the 10 beams of white light that connected heaven and earth finally came crashing down from the sky above the elf forest. The centermost beam entered Chu Yang's body with a boom. As for the other beams, one turned into a sword and rushed into Gu Duxing's body like lightning. Another one turned into a long saber and rushed into Dong Wushang's head. The other beams entered the bodies of Mo Tianji, GMO, Luo Kadi, Ray Butong Ao Shiyun, Xiadanqiong'en, and Mo Qing Wu. 10 beams of white light, 10 people. Not a single one was missing. Only when the white light found Mo Qing Wu did the eyes of the brothers flash with extreme surprise. Even Mo Tianji was no exception. If they still didn't know that the last tribulation was Mo Qing Wu at this point, how retarded would they be? At this moment, no one had the time to speak. The only thing they could feel was a surge of energy rushing into their bodies. Then, their cultivations began to soar rapidly. The pure energy was like the waves of a river, each wave higher than the previous one, as if it was endless. The brothers circulated their energy with all their might. They didn't have time to think about anything else. All of them were flushed by the extremely fierce and pure energy, as if they were drunk. Mo Layer looked at the person in front of her enviously, but her divine sense spread out in all directions. Right now, everyone was improving, and she was the only one left to guard. Her responsibility was very heavy, and she couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Besides, what was she disappointed about? Her husband, Dong Wushang, was also here. If he improved, wouldn't it be equivalent to her improving as well? Mo Layer's body shook. She turned into a wisp of black smoke and rushed to the top of a tall tree. She monitored all the movements within a few hundred miles. She didn't dare to be negligent at all. 3 days later. Brother Yu, are you really not going out with me? Chu Yang stood at the entrance of the underground city of elves and looked at Dukyu. I will go out. Dukyu chuckled. But I can't go with you. There are some things that I can't say to my brothers. Besides, all of you are already second-grade supreme martial artists. In the entire continent, it's not that there aren't many people who can resist all of you at the same time, but definitely none. I can be at ease now. Dukyu cupped his fists. Brother, take care! Take care! Chu Yang sighed in his heart. Duke, you really didn't have the slightest interest in the heavenly imperial court. Brother, you know how to find me if something happens. Chu Yang's body floated upwards. Let's get drunk some other time. We're not going home until we're drunk. Chu Yang's silhouette had already disappeared before his voice had even faded away. He had left without the slightest hesitation. I was wrong in this matter. But I had no other choice. Mo Tianji is still plotting against me. And Dong Wushang is still waiting to fight with me. So how can I go out with you this time? Duke, you looked in the direction where Jun Mo Xia had left. He shook his head and laughed bitterly. He muttered, I should also bring Alu here. Firstly, I'll settle the grudges between the Jun family. Secondly, I'll be able to settle down here. With a flash, he disappeared. Chu Yang was walking in a completely different direction from Chu Yang's. Two completely opposite directions. Now, the ground had already exploded. The light pillars in the sky had disappeared because they had been absorbed into their bodies. Although the light pillars had disappeared from sight, it didn't mean that they had truly disappeared. Everyone was trying their best to digest the benefits brought by the white light. Every white light was the purest collection of spiritual energy. Moreover, there wasn't a single bit of leakage during the absorption process. It belonged to whoever it belonged to. Moreover, it didn't have any conflict with one's cultivation. They couldn't even finish absorbing it. Everyone sat cross-legged and tried their best to absorb the pure spiritual energy. Because there was too much spiritual energy, all the bottlenecks were broken through one after another. Naturally, their own realms were also upgraded continuously. Waves of tyrannical auras of breakthroughs were constantly erupting. As a martial artist, it was already the limit to breakthrough once in a closed-door cultivation. Very few could break through multiple realms consecutively. And it was even more rare for many people to break through at the same time. A quiet environment for cultivation was the minimum requirement. However, the two most basic understandings had been broken today. Not only did they improve together, but they also had to break through continuously. Was this a myth? Legend? Legend? These words couldn't describe the scene in front of them. At least within a radius of 1,000 miles, as these dangerous auras slowly spread, birds and beasts completely disappeared. Not only were they scared away, but many were directly scared to death and died from the shock. Mo Layer was alone above, hiding in the bushes. She looked down extremely carefully and vigilantly at all the movements in the surroundings, protecting everyone's breakthroughs. Her beautiful eyes constantly swept across everyone below. She was really curious, who would wake up first? Who would be the last to wake up? Perhaps, if the brothers wanted to determine who was better, it would be reflected in these aspects. However, what realm would they break through to this time? Who would be the strongest in the end? As the white light dissipated, everyone had erupted with the aura of breakthroughs many times. An unusually strong aura of a breakthrough suddenly spread out. In that unusually strong aura, Gu Duxing was the first to open his eyes. His eyes shone brightly. Low-grade supreme martial artist. Gu Duxing, who opened his eyes, was completely different from before. At this moment, Gu Duxing was like a divine sword that had been buried for 1,000 years and suddenly appeared in the sky again. That indescribable sense of sharpness made Mo Layer, who was far away, feel a piercing pain in her eyes. She actually felt a sense of powerlessness, as if she couldn't look him in the eye. The next moment, awe-inspiring sword aura spread out, raging back and forth in the air, shuttling back and forth at will. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless trees nearby, when Gu Duxing had just woken up, completely unconsciously spread out and turned into powder. Then, the sword aura swept out and flew far away. It seemed like a large swarm of locusts had flown over. However, the destructive power of this swarm of locusts was slightly greater. Wherever it passed, not only was there no life left, there was no life at all. Gu Duxing's mind had completely returned to normal. He stood up, and silently pulled out the black dragon's sword. Then, he floated up to the top of a tree. He restrained his aura, and stood with his hand on his sword to protect his brothers. Opposite him was Mo Layer. The moment he woke up, he sensed Mo Layer's intentions, so the position he chose at this moment was just right to correspond with Mo Layer. Mo Lay finally heaved a sigh of relief. To be honest, while Mo Layer was happy that everyone had become stronger, she also had some fear in her heart. The extraterrestrial demon was also in this forest, and could even be watching from the side with evil intentions. Although according to Chu Yang, the extraterrestrial demon was quite injured in the previous game, Mo Layer still didn't have the confidence to protect everyone present. But now that Gu Duxing had completed his breakthrough and his strength had increased greatly, the burden on her shoulders had been lifted. How could she not be relieved? The second to wake up, greatly out of Mo Layer's expectations, was actually Mo Qingwu. A red figure floated and Mo Qingwu stood up gracefully. Her pretty eyes blinked twice, and then she floated up and chose another direction, standing with Gu Duxing and Mo Layer. The three of them formed a stable triangle, preventing any changes from happening. Gu Duxing looked around and couldn't help but be shocked. Mo Qingwu's current realm was actually second-grade supreme martial artist, on par with him. This conclusion was really something unbelievable, but Mo Qingwu was now a second-grade supreme martial artist. This was already an unquestionable fact. This little girl's future is really limitless. Gu Duxing's heart shook. The third person to stop was a vigorous and tyrannical aura that was emitted at a certain moment. It was as if 1,000,000 troops suddenly formed up at the same time in an empty field. It was majestic and murderous, like a mountain towering into the clouds, unshakable. This was a kind of natural majesty. Such a domineering aura made Mo Lay happy. He had woken up, there was no mistake, he had successfully broken through. No one would be more familiar with this person than Mo Layer, because that person was Dong Wushang. The Saber Emperor had woken up. Brother Wushang's aura is unparalleled, really impressive. Mo Qingwu, who was at the side, smiled and stuck out her tongue, saying to Mo Layer from afar. Mo Layer smiled and nodded, saying, "It's just that he's a little silly." On the other side, Gu Duxing rolled his eyes, thinking, "You're the only one who said this. If someone else said this, the first one to rush up and get angry would probably be Mo Layer herself." Women were such strange creatures. Towards their men, they could give themselves countless nicknames, and even often scold them with hatred. But if someone else echoed her words and followed her to speak ill of her man, the one who couldn't stand it the most would be the initiator. This point was enough to make one break down. So if a woman gritted her teeth and spoke ill of a man in front of you, don't try to echo her, because you would very easily offend both the man and woman. The result would be that you wouldn't even know how you died. A sentence of flattering agreement could lead to the most ridiculous result, don't doubt it. The fourth to stand up was Mo Tianji. Regarding this result, Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang and the others were still a little surprised. In their hearts, Mo Tianji had never been a battle-type talent. How come this time, he was even earlier than the recognized martial arts geniuses Ao Xie Yun and Xie Dan Qiong? But they didn't know that Mo Tianji had always been particular about convincing people with reason. If he could avoid fighting, he would try his best not to. But it didn't mean that his fighting ability was bad. A wise man could be weak, but he could also have unparalleled abilities, looking down on everyone. For example, Tang Xianxing, Diwu Qing Ro, and the master of calculation and manipulation, Mo Tianji. If Chu Yang was here, he wouldn't find it strange at all. Mo Tianji was also one of the 12 famous people in his previous life. How could his fighting ability be bad? This was clearly a ridiculous judgment. Chapter 16:10. After Mo Tianji stood up, this continued for a few breaths. No one else stood up. But the few people around him were all focused on guarding. They didn't say anything or do anything else. With these few people guarding the place, the rest of the people would be absolutely safe. Even if all the top experts of the big clans and law enforcement officers joined forces to attack, the 4 experts, Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang, Mo Qingwu and Mo Layer, plus Mo Tianji, who was at the core controlling everything, would definitely be able to successfully stall for time until the brothers came out of seclusion safely. But even so, no one dared to let their guard down. Being able to deal with changes was one thing, but being able to prevent changes from happening was another. Right now, the first rule was only absolute stability. That was all. After a short while, the aura of a breakthrough spread out again. This time, the one who completed the breakthrough was Ao Xieyun. At this moment, Duke Xie's body was shining with golden light. His aura rose. Behind him, a divine dragon in golden armor vaguely appeared. Its features were vivid and lively. Ao Xieyun had just stood up when the other two strong auras of a breakthrough also rose one after another. A loud and clear phoenix cry rang through the sky. The figure of a phoenix suddenly appeared. An abnormally hot aura was only slightly released before it was immediately retracted. Ray Batong. The moment he opened his eyes, he realized the current situation. Afraid that the change in his aura would disturb the other brothers' breakthroughs, he immediately restrained his aura completely. The next moment, an incomparably brilliant viburnum flower bloomed between the dragon and phoenix. Xie Danqiong had also completed his breakthrough. After that, only about 2 breaths' time, another 2 auras of a breakthrough descended. GMO and Luo Kadi. The two of them announced their breakthroughs at the same time and stood up from the ground. GMO turned around and saw that everyone around him had already stood up and tried to circulate their own essence energy. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Wahahaha! Damn it! I'm also a second-grade supreme martial artist now! I'm also a super expert now! Luo Kadi was so excited that he couldn't speak. He cried out twice and flipped 7 or 8 times on the ground. Then, he roared in the air. Awesome! The feeling of a breakthrough is so damn awesome! And Mo Tianji said, Everyone, don't be too excited. Come over here and report your progress first. It could be seen that Mo Tianji was also very excited. Even his voice was trembling. At this moment, he was just barely suppressing his excitement. However, this was the true nature of a military advisor. At this moment, if even the master of calculation and manipulation lost control, it wouldn't be a good thing. A moment later, everyone's situation was now clear to everyone. Gu Duxing, middle-grade supreme martial artist, close to peak-grade supreme martial artist, could step into high-grade supreme martial artist anytime. Dong Wushang, first-grade supreme martial artist. His cultivation level was roughly on par with Gu Duxing's. Ao Xieyun, first-grade supreme martial artist. Xie Danqiong, middle-grade supreme martial artist. Level. Mo Tianji, low-grade supreme martial artist. Mo Qingwu, low-grade supreme martial artist. His cultivation was only slightly below Gu and Dong, but he was above the other brothers. His progress was the most astonishing. GMO, middle-grade supreme martial artist. He was just on the verge of a breakthrough. Luo Kadi, middle-grade supreme martial artist. He was at the same level as GMO. What was worth mentioning was Rui Batong. Perhaps because his strength was the highest previously, he was already at peak-grade supreme martial artist. In terms of cultivation alone, he was still the top of the group. As everyone reported their cultivation level, Mo Tianji's expression became more and more excited. In the end, his face was flushed red. It seemed that it was getting harder and harder to suppress that excitement and impulse. A king-grade martial artist alone could dominate the lower 3 heavens. An emperor-grade martial artist could intimidate an area in the lower 3 heavens. Above emperor grade was monarch grade, above monarch grade was saint grade, and above saint grade was first-grade supreme martial artist. Now, among his brothers, there were a total of 10 people who were all first-grade supreme martial artists. Even in the upper 3 heavens, how many first-grade supreme martial artists could there be? Not to mention that among his brothers there were a few who could challenge and even win against those of a higher level. For example, Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang, Ao Xieyun, Rui Batong. Although these 4 people were all around the same level now, and only Rui Batong was high-grade supreme martial artist, even if they were to face peak-grade supreme martial artists, they would definitely not be a match for them. Perhaps, they would only be slightly inferior to those legendary peak-grade supreme martial artists. And those people, how many heavens were there in total? Even if he stretched out 5 fingers, he probably wouldn't be able to count them all. For example, the Moon Breeze couple, Ning Tianya, Wu Jueqing, the Dharma Supreme, and a few others. Yes, it seemed that most of these people were on Tribulation's side. As for the big clans, there were definitely high-grade supreme martial artists, such as Xiao Qingyu and Yi Qinchin. But as for those who were peak-grade supreme martial artists, that might not be the case. The big clans could no longer pose a substantial threat to Tribulation now. Or just as the big clans thought, when the 8th fragment of the Tribulation sword returned, the big clans would gradually enter the end of their lives. The track of history would turn again. No matter how they resisted, the final outcome would still be the same. The bleak days of U.S. brothers living with our tails between our legs are finally gone forever. Mo Tianji smiled gently. The smile on his face was like a blooming flower. Before this, the brothers were not strong enough and could only choose to hide in the east, fearing that they would be intercepted. If they were really surrounded, there was no need for the big clans to join hands. Any one of the clans could attack with all their strength, or even a supreme martial artist would be able to completely annihilate them. They really had to be very careful. But now, annihilation? What a joke! Now, it was not certain who would be annihilated. Even if any of the brothers were to go out, they would be considered as big shots in the martial world. When they encountered an enemy, even if the enemy was surrounded by several high-grade supreme martial artists, even if they were weak and couldn't win, they could always escape. Moreover, Boss Chu had foresight. Before this, what he trained the most was the brothers' ability to escape unscathed. Each of them could be said to be incomparably slippery. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they were slippery. If the enemy's number is less than 1, then, sorry, please leave your lives behind. The big clans will have to live with the grievances of the past in the future. It has nothing to do with us anymore. This is great. This is really great. Mo Tianji excitedly clenched his left fist and punched his right palm. From now on, Brother Tribulation's name will really sweep across the heavens. We will write a new legend of Tribulation. Among the brothers, besides Chu Yan, the one who was most worried about everyone's safety was Mo Tianji, who was the brains of Tribulation. He had done all he could to ensure the safety of the brothers. In the countless battles in the past, including the Li clan's battle, he had done all he could to prevent any accidents from happening to the brothers. Now that everyone's strength had improved greatly, the fatal weakness of lacking strength in the past no longer existed. Mo Tianji could be said to have truly started to relax. Ha! That's right, we will sweep across the heavens and write a new legend, a legend that belongs to us. The brothers were all so excited that they couldn't control themselves. No one would have thought that the 8th fragment of Tribulation's sword that Boss Chu had obtained would bring them such great benefits. This was the so-called reaching the heavens in a single step. Moreover, it was a single step without any hindrance or cushion. Even Gu Duxing, who always had a cold face, had a gentle smile on his face at this moment. Even if he wanted to force himself to keep a straight face, he couldn't. How could he keep a straight face when his heart was bursting with joy? As for the others, they were all so excited that they were squealing. The 3 clowns, GMO, Luo Kudi and Rui Batong, simply curled their bodies into balls and rolled around on the ground. They kept colliding with each other, and then bounced off each other before continuing to roll around like 3 rubber balls. Duke Ao Xie and Duke Yunao couldn't stop smiling. One could stuff a durian into his mouth. One really wondered if his chin had already fallen off from laughing. Xie Danqiong maintained a reserved smile. Because of his excitement, his flushed face had long betrayed the joy in his heart. Coupled with his handsome face, he looked like a young lady who was about to get married. He was extremely pretty. That's right, pretty. Dong Wushang grinned foolishly and touched his black saber. Sometimes he tilted his head, then he tilted his head again, and then he tilted his head again. If Second Master Dong's expression at this moment was drawn by someone, it wouldn't need to be drawn foolishly. Because this was an absolute foolishness that couldn't be faked. In fact, it looked even more foolish than foolishness. It seemed that there was no other expression more foolish than his current one. Amo Qingwu gasped for breath in small mouthfuls. Her beautiful face was flushed red. She was truly a feast for the eyes. She had a unique charm. Amo Layer leaned against Dong Wushang and also smiled happily. Then, she felt a little depressed. She pinched Dong Wushang and asked softly, "What about me?" Dong Wushang was so happy that he didn't hear clearly. But even if he did, he might not be able to understand immediately. He asked subconsciously, "What?" "I'm talking about me. All of you have reached the peak level now. I'm the only one who's still at the peak level. The gap is too big." Amo Layer was a little angry. Why did this bastard become deaf when he was happy? But seeing that there were so many people around, she didn't want to be too loud. She could only ask softly, "What are you talking about? Or some boom?" Dong Wushang only felt that he was about to explode with joy. For a moment, he actually still didn't hear clearly what Amo Layer was talking about. He heard Amo Layer's peak level as some boom. He couldn't help but scratch his head and grin foolishly. "What are you talking about? Be loud!" Amo Layer was already embarrassed. Plus, there was some imbalance that she couldn't tell outsiders. Seeing him being so silly, she couldn't help but fly into a rage. She gathered all her strength and punched Dong Wushang's lower abdomen. She gritted her teeth and said, "Pig! What boom? Just like that." Chapter 16:11. Dong Wushang was caught off guard. Even though he was a supreme martial artist, he still couldn't take it. He was instantly sent flying like a gold ingot. He was still a little confused. "How did you coax? Ouch! It hurts! How did you do that? Boom!" Amo Layer flew up with a flushed face and chased after Dong Wushang's flying body. She gave him a series of blows and scolded angrily. "Just like that! Just like that! Just like that! Just like that! Boom!" At the side, all the brothers who were so happy that they couldn't tell north from south didn't know what was going on. They all quieted down instantly. What was going on? All of them watched as Amo Layer displayed her might and Dong Wushang was being hit here and there like a sandbag. Booming sounds rang out incessantly and Dong Wushang's screams rose and fell one after another. They couldn't help but break out in cold sweat and look at each other in dismay. What was going on? Brothers, you mustn't find a wife like this. You'll really die. This was a classic example. My God, this was too ruthless. Luckily, old Dong was already a mid-grade supreme martial artist. If his cultivation was a little weaker, wouldn't he be smashed into meat paste? Especially GMO looking at Dong Wushang being beaten up there, he couldn't help but think of Huyan Albua. In that instant, his whole body trembled. He really could empathize with Dong Wushang, and he actually couldn't help but feel a little scared. It seemed that Huyan Albua wasn't much kinder than Mo Layer. She was even more violent. Old Dong's body is already like this. What about me? Oh my God! The more he thought about it, the more terrified he felt. Second Master Ji forced himself to calm down, but he was still tongue-tied. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva and his eyes were a little dazed. He was scared. His legs also seemed to be trembling a little. You're today just like me tomorrow, boo-hoo. Today's matter seemed to have created another super record. A mere mid-grade supreme martial artist beat a mid-grade supreme martial artist into a pig's head without any ability to fight back. She even scared another mid-grade supreme martial artist to the point that his legs trembled and the other 7 mid-grade supreme martial artists to the point that they kept quiet out of fear. Miss Mo Layer's achievement was not only unprecedented, but also unprecedented. She was the only one throughout history. How are you going to do that? Accompanied by Mo Layer's angry shout, Dong Wushang's huge body was kicked out like a shooting star, crashing into and breaking several big trees. Finally, his whole body was embedded in the trunk of the last big tree. Seeing Mo Lair turn around and walk over angrily, the brothers all tactfully turned their heads and started to chat as if nothing had happened. What's wrong with asking at this time? Ask why. All of them were people who had run into bad luck and might invite disaster upon themselves. None of them were fools. Wow, your hairstyle is so handsome now. Is that so? Ha! GMO, you are also very handsome now. Very handsome indeed. Yes. Little Wolf has a lot of character now. Gu Duxing is wearing all black today. Wow, so cool. That's right. Mo Tianji is laughing like a fool. Such meaningless words were exchanged very enthusiastically among the 7 mid-grade supreme martial artists. Looking at this bunch of shameless people, Mo Lair stomped her feet hatefully. She almost wanted to rush back and beat Dong Wushang up again. She would feel aggrieved if she couldn't vent her anger. Sister, what's wrong with you? Mo Qingwu whispered into Mo Lair's ear. Brother Wushang doesn't seem like someone who would make you angry. Is there some misunderstanding? Misunderstanding? What misunderstanding? This bastard! Mo Lair was still full of hatred. He's deaf. He deserves a beating. Mo Qingwu's pretty eyes widened. Deaf? How could a mid-grade supreme martial artist be deaf? But even if he was really deaf, there was no need to beat him up. The two didn't seem to be related at all. Dong Wushang groaned as he struggled out of the tree hole. Then he limped back. That fierce and domineering aura from before had already vanished into thin air. Instead, it was replaced by confusion, as well as a kind of baffling innocence and injustice. He said gloomily, What's wrong with you? What's wrong? What did I do to you? Hearing this, Mo Lair was about to fly up again. This idiot, could he be any more infuriating? Energy would energy? Mo Tianji hurriedly stepped in to smooth things over. Okay, Wushang, I have something very important to tell you. Come over quickly. How smart was Mo Tianji? His intelligence was naturally not something Dong Wushang could compare to. Although the two of them didn't say the whole story clearly, he could guess it with a turn of his head. Mo Lair must have felt that it was unfair because everyone had improved like a rocket while she hadn't, and was still stuck at the same spot. She didn't worry about poverty, but she worried about inequality. This was an indisputable matter. In fact, anyone would feel unbalanced in their heart. Furthermore, Mo Lair was a super figure who was on equal footing with everyone here in the 3 heavens. Along the way, she had never fallen behind. But now, she had fallen so far behind. It would be strange if she felt good about it. But Dong Wushang was a blockhead, and a blockhead who didn't think about anything due to the extreme excitement of improving. He actually didn't hear what Mo Lair said to him clearly. It would be strange if he didn't teach him a lesson. What's wrong? What's so important that you can't say it in front of everyone? Hurry up and say it. I still have something to say to Lair. Dong Wushang walked over and asked in a low voice. Sigh. Mo Tianji sighed before speaking. I finally understand what it means to expect better from someone. Why are you so stupid? Do you really think I have something to say to you? I'll be honest with you, your wife is obviously because... As he spoke, he explained in a low voice. Oh. Dong Wushang suddenly understood. He finally understood. He hurriedly turned around and ran back. Sigh. I haven't finished speaking. Mo Tianji hadn't finished speaking and this guy had already left hurriedly. He couldn't help but be dumbfounded. I haven't taught you how to pacify her. Why are you in such a hurry? Dong Wushang jogged all the way to Mo Lair. He scratched his head helplessly and said, Wife, there's really no way around this. Don't be anxious, don't be angry, and don't feel that it's unfair. Although everyone has improved except for you, there's really no way around this. Before he finished speaking, Mo Lair had already sent a flying kick out in shame. This time, she really used all her strength in shame and anger. Boom! Dong Wushang was once again sent flying in the air. He flew even further than before and knocked down even more trees. In midair, Dong Wushang's face was even more confused. I really completely understood. Why is she still hitting me? What's going on? Women are really hard to please. She hit me when I don't understand, and hit me when I understand. Mo Layer covered her face and stomped her feet. She shouted in shame. Dong Wushang. You pig! You're really a pig! The other brothers sighed and shook their heads speechless. You're really a pig to a certain extent. Originally, this was a rather private matter. No matter what, Mo Layer was too embarrassed to say it out loud. But Dong Wushang's explanation made the whole world know about it, and put everything out in the open. How could a girl like Mo Layer get out of this embarrassing situation? Poof! Dong Wushang knocked down a few more trees again. He stood up hundreds of feet away and scratched his head, looking confused. He tilted his head and pondered for a long time. He felt that he didn't seem to have done anything wrong. Then, he suddenly felt extremely wronged and asked, Why? Why did you hit me again? Upon hearing this question, including Mo Lei and Mo Qingwu, everyone's actions were uniform. They all covered their faces with their hands. They really didn't expect. This guy still didn't understand until now. What kind of innate talent is this? Please don't use a pig to describe this guy. This is obviously mocking other people's pigs. This time, everyone tacitly chose to stand aside and watch Dong Wushang's astonishment and injustice. A few enthusiastic people even wanted to step forward and explain, but they were stopped by GMO and Luo Kadi. What a joke. What are you trying to explain? Let's just watch the show. Second Master Ji even secretly started a bet. Let's see how long Second Master Dong can be stupid before he comes to his senses. So all the brothers who placed their bets went up one after another. Sigh, what a bunch of guys who just want to see the world in chaos. When a brother is in trouble, not only do they not help, they even want to hit him when he's down. Really bad. Mo Tianji looked at this scene and couldn't help but shake his head helplessly. Then, he walked over and placed a bet of 100 purple crystals. What should we do next? Xie Danqiong's eyes were filled with boundless eagerness. Everyone had improved their cultivation. Naturally, they had to find an opponent to practice with. Only then could they consolidate their current cultivation. Let's wait for Chu Yan to come up first. Mo Tianji nodded calmly, indicating for everyone to calm down. Hearing this, everyone quieted down. Yes, Boss Chu hadn't come up yet. Everyone had improved so much, but who knew what level Boss Chu had improved to? Who wants to bet with me? Second Master Ji's gambling spirit was triggered. The bet hadn't ended yet, but he actually wanted to open another bet. I bet that Boss Chu is at least high grade now. There are 3 choices for you to bet on: grade, high grade, peak grade. Those who want to bet, come quickly. People here are stupid and have a lot of money. It's a waste not to take advantage of this. Luo Kadi shouted loudly. Then, he placed a bet of 500 purple crystals on the grade. According to everyone's experience, as long as Boss Chu improved, he would be about the same level as the brothers under normal circumstances. Besides, it was only the 8th fragment of the Calamity Sword. It wasn't the last fragment yet, so he should be about the same level as everyone else. It definitely wouldn't be much higher. So, choosing the grade was very promising. It was precisely because people shared the same thoughts, their hearts shared the same reasoning. Everyone placed their bets. Most of them were betting on the grade. Only Mo Qingwu, who had unlimited trust in Chu Yang, directly placed a bet of 500 purple crystals on the peak grade. GMO beamed with delight. Little sister Qingwu is really kind. You see that I'm poor, so you're deliberately giving me purple crystals to make up for my deficit. Alright, seeing that this little girl is sincere, I'll give you 10 purple crystals for the peak grade. Chapter 16:12. Although it was stated that the odds were 1 to 10, everyone still looked at this guy with extreme disdain. Reaching the peak of the supreme grade was obviously an impossible option. This guy was obviously trying to cheat the little girl of her money. Naturally, no one would fall for it. Only Mo Tianji's eyes lit up. He murmured, 1 to 10? Then I'll also reach the peak of the low grade. 1 soul of purple crystal. He smiled. I'm Little Wu's brother. Of course, I have to support my sister firmly. GMO shouted excitedly. Good. Your share will also be 1 to 10. He grinned crookedly. That was a piece of soul of the purple crystal. A priceless treasure. Emotianji had really lost this time. To think that I, Second Master Ji, would actually be able to take advantage of Emotianji one day. And a huge advantage at that. But was it really so easy to take advantage of Emotianji? Emotianji smiled and said, I say, GMO, if you want to gamble, you have to be fair. Even if you're the banker, you have to have the ability to back it up. It's one thing if you're confident in winning the bet, but if you lose, can you compensate with 10 pieces of souls of the purple crystal? This? GMO was tongue-tied. Then, he laughed maniacally. You think I'll lose? How can I possibly lose? Don't you know that 1 out of 10 gamblers will lose? The only one who doesn't lose is the banker. As the saying goes, one can never lose a bet. Nothing is absolute in this world. What if you lose? You can't be trying to gain something without risking anything, right? Winning or losing is important, right? Emotianji's smile didn't fade. He was quietly putting pressure on GMO. Yes, or I won't accept your bet. There's no point in winning against my own brother. GMO had no choice but to give up on the fat meat in his mouth. He casually came up with an excuse that even he himself didn't believe to smooth things over. That's not necessary. I won't force you to compensate with 10 souls of purple crystal, Emotianji said. If you really lose, as long as you agree to one condition, we'll bet like this. GMO was overjoyed. He said proudly. Say it. There's nothing that Second Master Ji doesn't dare to agree to. Emotianji chuckled. I won't make things difficult for you. If you lose, in the future, before you speak, you'll first say, they all had to say one thing first. GMO is a stupid bird. Then we'll start talking. What do you say? Do you dare to bet? It was just a matter of touching lips, and he had already won the soul of the purple crystal. You're the one who's taking advantage of this bet. The crowd roared with laughter. Emotianji's condition could be said to be extremely miserly. Emotianji's request wasn't excessive in the sense that the stakes were fair. After all, GMO had a huge advantage. But it would be very unsightly if GMO lost. Everyone knew that Emotianji hated GMO for failing to live up to his expectations. And he especially hated GMO's slippery and cheap mouth. His anger was the most difficult to suppress. Emotianji had once said, if GMO can control his annoying mouth and tongue, and restrain his rascal temper, then GMO's future achievements won't lose to anyone in the world. Especially when this guy was impudent. Apart from Chuyang, he was careless and carefree towards everyone else. Emotianji hated it the most when other people were glib with him. It was confusing, but GMO repeated it over and over again. Now that there was an opportunity before him, he might as well take advantage of it to get rid of this guy's bad habit. If GMO really lost the bet, he would have to scold him for being a fool every time he opened his mouth to speak. Then, Emotianji believed that GMO would definitely speak less in the future. He would only speak when he absolutely had to. Being a man of few words was definitely not a Liduo. GMO was so infuriated by Emotianji's words that his face turned red. He didn't care about anything else. He shouted loudly. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Let's bet then. But if you lose, you have to give me another soul of the purple crystal. Yes. Anyway, he was sure to win. As long as he won, who would care about the stakes? He might as well take this opportunity to ask for another soul of the purple crystal for his wife to raise her cultivation. I'll bet. It's a deal. Heaven and earth bear witness. Anyone who reneges on a bet is a fool. Emotianji agreed without hesitation. Oh yeah! GMO did a somersault in excitement. I've hit the jackpot today. Today is probably my lucky day. First, my cultivation has improved tremendously. Then, something as good as the soul of the purple crystal has delivered itself to my doorstep. This is what they call unparalleled fortune. What do you mean by luck? This is luck. Emotianji smiled reservedly and said, Congratulations on your luck. You've struck it rich. GMO couldn't close his mouth. He, who felt that victory was in his hands, didn't consider what would happen if he lost. They didn't know if it was the will of the heavens. But a slight tremor suddenly came from the ground as soon as the bets were settled. Then, everyone saw that countless big trees had gathered together to form a super big tree. And that big tree was where Chu Yang and Dookie were. But it suddenly disappeared. It had disappeared into thin air just like that, turning into a very spacious open space. The next moment, countless shrubs and flowers grew rapidly in that open space. In just a few breaths' time, it had already turned into an abnormally dense patch of grass. This was the city of elves' unique way of hiding from others. If this change hadn't happened right in front of everyone's eyes, no one would have believed that there was nothing there just a few breaths' time ago. It was even more unbelievable that there was a huge tree there just a few moments ago. Seeing this change, the brothers couldn't help but be shocked. The disappearance of this huge tree meant that the city of elves had completely revived and concealed itself again. It also meant that the matter with Big Brother down there had come to an end. Big Brother was finally coming out. Although they hadn't seen each other for only half a month, everyone was still a little excited. After all, they had just experienced an improvement that was like a meat pie falling from the sky. Who wouldn't be excited and want to share this joy with Big Brother? GMO was even more excited. Well, it wasn't really that strange. He was excited because not only could he flaunt his achievements, but he could also get a large sum of wealth in his pocket. Second Master G was already smiling so widely that his eyes couldn't be seen. Beside him, Luo Kudi was looking at him jealously. He was muttering, as if cursing and complaining. Why couldn't he get anything out of such a good thing? GMO, this fellow, had taken all the advantages. Sigh, what a miscalculation. Why didn't we open that bet first? Good cabbage was taken by that fellow. I'm definitely not jealous. I just can't stand seeing a villain getting ahead of himself. Chu Zhang finally returned full of joy. When he came in front of his brothers, he thought that even if they didn't line up to welcome him warmly, they would at least come over to express their condolences. Not to mention others, even the little girl would definitely come over. Even if the little girl was shy and didn't come over, she should at least come over and say a few intimate words, right? Unexpectedly, the 10 people on the ground were all looking at him with strange expressions. What was going on? For a moment, Chu Yang only thought that he had come out naked again. Previously, when he was breaking through, he completely didn't notice that his clothes, pants, shoes, and socks were completely torn. A certain elf had stared at him for a long time. Luckily, there were only the two of them. Would it be again? He hurriedly looked down. That's not right. My clothes and shoes are very neat. When I came out of the ground just now, I paid special attention to my clothes so that they weren't torn. If they were exposed again, I would really be a laughing stock. Since I'm not exposed, then what was going on? What was going on? I say, what are you all looking at? Is my face dirty? Chu Yang asked puzzledly. Although there was no problem with his clothes and shoes, could it be that his face was stained with dust or something? Cough, cough, cough. When they heard the question, all the brothers coughed together. Their actions were uniform, and no one answered. Actually, it wasn't their fault that their reactions were strange. It was just that Gu Duxing and the others were all puzzled in their hearts. Why couldn't they see through Chu Yang's cultivation now? What level was Boss at? Who can tell me what's going on? Why are all of you so strange? Chu Yang asked. Ahem, it's nothing. Nothing at all. Imotianji coughed and asked. I say, boss, what level have your cultivation reached now? This time, it should be a big improvement, right? Facing the reappearance of a certain unfathomable king of hell, the master of calculation and manipulation was a little afraid and inadvertently used honorifics. Chu Zhang looked up and his gaze slid across everyone. He said, Not bad, not bad. Everyone has already reached the level of first-grade supreme martial artist and above. Ha ha ha, congratulations, congratulations. Luo Kadi hurriedly asked. What about you, boss? What level have you reached? Chu Yang pondered for a moment and felt his own situation. He said seriously, just based on cultivation, a conservative estimate would be that I'm probably at the level of first-grade supreme martial artist now. What? Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Although they couldn't see through Chu Yang's cultivation, they knew that his cultivation should be above everyone else. However, they still didn't dare to confirm that Chu Yang had reached the peak of heavenly layer. GMO, who almost blacked out, suddenly thought of Chu Yang's words. Hoping for a chance, he asked, Boss, what you said just now was a conservative estimate of first-grade supreme martial artist. If that's not a conservative estimate, if I don't make a conservative estimate, even if I can't compare to the Dharma Supreme Wu Jueqing and Ning Tianya, I can probably reach the level of the Moon Breeze Elders. Chu Yang replied humbly. When this sentence came out, Mo Qin Wu cheered. Mo Tianji clenched his fists, an inexplicable excitement on his face. Everyone else was dumbfounded, as if they had seen a deity. Luo Kadi was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, he let out an aha and laughed so hard that tears flowed down his face. He thought to himself, Retribution, this is retribution. Who asked you to set up a gambling house? Now you know the dangers of gambling. Luckily, he had always stayed out of it. GMO completely lost all hope. His face twisted and convulsed in an instant, as if he had lost his parents. He opened his mouth and almost cried. Other than Mo Tianji and Mo Qingwu, all the brothers who participated in the gambling were wiped out. No one won. Gu Duxing and the rest's bets were of course swallowed by GMO, the banker. However, GMO, the banker who seemed to have won alone, was the one who lost the most. Although only 2 people won, one of them had to pay 10 times the compensation. All the bets he earned were not enough to compensate Mo Qingwu alone. Not to mention there was another bet that was even more ridiculous. GMO is a stupid bird. This, oh my god! You can't cheat people like this. Chapter 16-13. Ayaya. Boss. GMO wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He said miserably, Boss, why did you improve so much? You tricked me. What? I tricked you? What do you mean? What's going on? Chu Yang asked curiously. Ha! The brothers naturally understood. Their laughter shook the heavens, but no one explained. Mo Qingwu moved closer to Chu Yang's ear and giggled as she recounted the entire process of the bet. Chu Yang was stunned in an instant. Then, when he saw GMO's expression, he couldn't help but laugh. GMO, you must accept your loss. Now you can honor your bet. Mo Tianji said emotionlessly. I can compensate you with 10 souls of the purple crystal and cancel the bet. GMO said weakly. Sure, there's no problem with such great benefits. You can cancel the bet if you honor it. Hand it over. Mo Tianji was very straightforward and magnanimous. I'll owe it to you first, wait for me. GMO pleaded. That won't do. I want to see enough souls of the purple crystal or hear that sentence. Mo Tianji refused without hesitation. Second brother Mo, you're my brother, my good brother. At this moment, GMO was like a coquettish puppy wagging its tail, holding Mo Tianji's sleeve and begging. Mo Tianji's status was gradually rising, and he was advancing like an elder. Mo Tianji was impartial and tried to break free from someone. If you're a man, you must accept your loss. If you can't afford to lose, don't play. Everyone jeered. To someone who had won against everyone but lost to Mo Tianji, they naturally had to hit him when he was down. Yes. GMO, you must honor the bet. The bet just now was witnessed by heaven and earth. You're not a man if you don't keep your word. Are you still a man? Isn't it just a sentence? It's just lips opening and closing. Do you have to be so evasive? Hurry up, don't waste everyone's time. Hurry up! GMO was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and stomped his feet. He said indignantly, I finally understand. You guys are a bunch of heartless and inhumane people. Isn't it just a sentence? I'll admit it, Mo Tianji slowly said. Stop. Don't try to confuse the public. That's not just a sentence. Pay attention. You have to say this sentence every time you speak. Everyone here is a witness. He is also a supervisor. GMO shouted hysterically. Good. Then, everyone quieted down. Chu Yang took out his water skin to drink as he asked Mo Qingwu. What was that sentence? It seemed that Mo Qingwu had said everything just now, but she had left out the part about the bet. GMO is a stupid bird. Second Master Ji had already called out with a heroic spirit. It happened to coincide with Mo Qingwu's reply in a low voice. GMO is a stupid bird. Second Master Ji said passionately. Is this good enough? PFFF. Minister Chu spat out a mouthful of water, and it happened to spray onto Mo Qingwu's pretty face. The little girl was talking to him with her head raised, and her face was immediately washed by the water. She stared at him sullenly. Cough, cough, cough. Cough, cough, cough. Sorry. Cough, cough. Chu Yang kept coughing as he hurriedly apologized. On the other side, it was already a sea of joy. The brothers wanted to see the world in chaos. They all fought to speak to GMO. GMO, look at Luo Kudi now. GMO is a stupid bird. GMO said. What about Luo Kudi? More popular novels, Baidu search. GMO, don't be too sad. You'll get used to it. You know it. Everyone knows it. Mo Tianji is really a good for nothing. Ao Xie Yun smiled evilly. GMO is a stupid bird. GMO gritted his teeth and said, Yes, Mo Tianji is indeed a good for nothing. You are also a good for nothing. GMO, that GMO is a stupid bird. Since he had already said it, Second Master Ji might as well just go with the flow. The more he said it, the smoother it got. He gritted his teeth and thought, I'll change my name to G de Mo in the next moment. I won't be called GMO anymore. Chu Yang was almost out of breath. He walked to GMO and patted his shoulder. GMO. Why are you? GMO is a stupid bird. Second Master Ji said reflexively. What's the matter, boss? The corners of Chu Yang's mouth spasmed for a while. Why are you so stupid? You're even stupider than Wu Shang. You can't take out the souls of purple crystal to fulfill the bet. Why don't you borrow them from me? I have plenty of them here. Not to mention 10, I have even 20. Huh! GMO stared at Chu Yang with wide eyes, his face full of disbelief and utter speechlessness. It's not a big deal. Chu Yang casually grabbed a handful of souls of purple crystal from the tribulation space. They shone in the air. There were more than 20 of them. Don't you have a lot here? Do you have to go to that extent? GMO screamed. Oh my God! Oh my God! At the side, the brothers were already laughing so hard that they fell over. GMO suddenly snatched the souls of purple crystal from Chu Yang's hands. He rushed to Mo Tianji's side and counted 10 of them. Here's your bet. 10 souls of purple crystal. Will this do? You don't have to make things difficult for me anymore. Mo Tianji took them calmly. His eyes narrowed into a smile as he said, Yes, the bet is settled. We don't owe each other anything. GMO gritted his teeth. No. I said that a few times just now. You should also say Mo Tianji is a fool a few times now. Mo Tianji glared at him and said, What did you say? Do you mean that you still want to continue? Sure, I'll return these souls of purple crystal to you. GMO was instantly stunned. He murmured, No, I didn't mean that. I just. Mo Tianji chuckled. If you didn't mean that, what did you mean? I know that you're indignant, but as the banker, is there such a rule in the bet that you made? The brothers said in unison. No. Definitely not, ahahaha. Look, everyone is a witness. Mo Tianji spread out his hands. Everyone agrees that there's no such rule, so. GMO was completely dumbfounded. He didn't dare to make a sound anymore. He was even afraid that Mo Tianji wouldn't want the souls of purple crystal. If that happened, he would have to continue saying that. He secretly decided that from now on, he wouldn't speak carelessly and make decisions carelessly. The brothers chatted and laughed. In order to celebrate everyone's great improvement in strength, they decided to hold a grand barbecue event in the elven forest. Everyone was in high spirits. Only GMO was like a frost-hit cigar, or like a pitiful little girl who had been ravaged by 20 heavenly demon wheels. There was no need to mention the resentment and grievance he felt. How sad! How miserable! How tragic! Everyone was busy. While they were busy, Chu Yang secretly pulled Mo Tianji to one side. Tianji, this joke seems to have gone a little overboard. Chu Yang was a little unhappy. Brothers could joke around, but if they went overboard, it would be hurtful. Hurtful was even more hurtful. Once there was a crack in a relationship, it was very difficult to mend it. It did go a little overboard. Mo Tianji nodded and admitted. But I did it on purpose. I did it on purpose. Why? Chu Yang asked. Regarding Mo Tianji's answer, Chu Yang felt that it was both unexpected and reasonable. Who was Mo Tianji? The master of calculation and manipulation. The master of tribulations. There were several wise men in the world. How could he ignore reason, kill them all, and target his own brother without leaving any leeway? Sure enough, there was another reason. GMO really talks too much. His temper is also not very good. Moreover, he is the kind that offends people easily. I want to change this bad habit of his. And to treat a serious illness, I naturally have to use strong medicine. Mo Tianji said lightly. No matter what he says in our brother's territory, we can bear it. In the heavenly layer, with our current strength, we don't have to be afraid of anyone. Naturally, we don't have to be afraid of GMOs saying the wrong things and offending people. But we will charge into the heavenly layer in the future. That is a completely unfamiliar world. It is a world with a higher level of cultivation. Over there, perhaps just one sentence can cause a disaster. If that time really comes, no matter whether we have the ability to deal with it or not, it will definitely not be a good thing. Also, if we are together, we can bear the responsibility for him. But if we are separated, what will happen? And most importantly, GMO positions himself as the happy fruit of our brothers. This won't do. He is our brother. He can't be a clown. Mo Tianji said. Besides, he relies too much on our judgment. This is, of course, the most precious thing in a relationship. If we're always together, this is undoubtedly the best thing for him. But if we are separated one day, he will be at a loss. This will undoubtedly harm his entire life. If this temper can't be changed, then in the future, when we charge into the heavenly layer, he can only be with you and me. Or, he can't be separated from the other brothers because he needs someone to look after him. Mo Tianji said. If things really develop to this point, then it will really be a big deal. My actions this time have indeed hurt his self-esteem. But I think it is worth it. As long as he can change, everything is worth it. Let me be the bad guy. Even if he hates me for a lifetime, it is still better than losing his life. Mo Tianji said lightly. Chu Yang sighed. Yes, Mo Tianji was right. As the brothers' cultivation improved by leaps and bounds, everyone already felt that their days in the heavenly layer were not long. Once the sky collapsed and the void shattered, it would be time to separate. Because everyone had their own circumstances. It was absolutely impossible for the brothers to go up together and stay together. Instead, they would be scattered all over the world. If they were not careful, this separation might be forever. And Mo's carefree and unscrupulous temper was really worrying. Chapter 16-14. The experts of the heavenly imperial court were incomparable to those of the heavenly continent. After being separated, they were even more helpless. Not to mention a word, A look was enough to make others feel murderous, leading to a battle of life and death. The two of them chatted as they walked. At this time, they had already gone to a secluded corner. In the distance, the brothers saw the two of them talking and tactfully did not disturb them. Instead, they lowered their chatter and laughter for fear of disturbing these two big shots. What you said naturally makes sense, but I still feel that some things should be handled more gently, Chu Yang said softly. Brothers are different from subordinates. In this world, brothers are hard to come by. Brothers are different from subordinates. Mo Tianji's eyes lit up. He said, I understand. This time, the strength of the brothers has increased greatly. Tianji, do you have any plans for the future? Chu Yang asked. Plans for the future? Mo Tianji pondered and said, How far has the Calamity Sword reached? Chu Yang scratched his head. It should be at the peak for now. It's completely different from those so-called legends. It's completely different. I'm confident that I can surpass them by a lot. Mo Tianji's eyes lit up. Just as I expected. What are the differences? Why are you so confident? Chu Yang said. Speaking of which, this matter is very strange. Not to mention the choice of the sword's soul. Just the kidnapping is very different from before. There were many legends before that the Brotherhood of the Calamity Sword could move heaven and earth. The Calamity Sword clan intimidates the world. There was also a legend that the Calamity Sword clan did not have the same surname. In other words, the Calamity Sword clan did not have a woman, Chu Yang said with some confusion. But this time, the world has been turned upside down. It completely overturned many of the precedents. The last Calamity Sword clan, all the signs point to Qing Wu. What's going on? Mo Tianji smiled confidently. You're here because of this? Chu Yang said. This is my biggest doubt. Shouldn't I be puzzled? Mo Tianji laughed out loud. What are you laughing at? What's so funny? Chu Yang was a little depressed. He was really stunned by Mo Tianji's laughter. What are you laughing at? I'm just laughing at you. You're quite smart, but why do you like to go to a dead end? Mo Tianji smiled for a while and said, Don't you know that what I'm practicing now is the world-controlling divine technique? Moreover, we've mentioned before that this world-controlling divine technique, the original senior who had it had only scratched the surface. Logically speaking, people with especially good brains have relatively poor hands-on skills. However, that convention has been broken by me. My current cultivation is already 10 times that of that senior. Mo Tianji insipidly said. But the more I study, the more I feel that this divine technique is as vast as the ocean. However, this divine technique requires one to dabble in many aspects and master them through a comprehensive study. Then, one must walk their own path based on their own understanding. Perhaps, it is only suitable for people like me to practice. Chu Yang nodded and said, This is not bad. It had to be said that like people, like birds, like birds. Similarly, like people, like martial arts. Mo Tianji had once asked Chu Yang to help him study the world-controlling divine technique when he was at his greatest bottleneck. In the end, Chu Yang had only looked at it for a short while before he had a headache. He had almost lost his mind. That technique was not very difficult to practice, but the many aspects of knowledge required were too diverse. It was really too troublesome. Chu Yang had only studied it for a total of 3 days before he fled. He did not dare to act rashly again. However, Mo Tianji had relied on his own abilities to forcefully guide others. He had opened up a new path and walked out from it. Currently, I have already reached the peak of the second level of the world-controlling divine technique. Mo Tianji insipidly said. In the general principles of the second level, there is a sentence that goes, 50 great Taos, for heavenly evolutions. Escape 1, myriad of changes. Chu Yang silently nodded. There is another sentence that goes, man has his end, number has its limit. Number has its limit. Mo Tianji smiled and said, But how many people are there in the world? How can there be a limit? Therefore, it is said that it is the largest number. More popular novels can be found on Baidu. Chu Yang nodded again. At this moment, he seemed to be a little confused, but also a little enlightened. But how could it be related to the Calamity Sword? You are the master of the Calamity Sword. You are the master of the Calamity Sword. You are the first master of the Calamity Sword. In other words, you have already gone to the extreme. And Mo Tianji insipidly said, there is no path to the extreme. If there is a path, it is a variable. 50 great Taoists, for heavenly evolutions. The escaped one is the variable. And you are the variable of the Calamity Sword. And Mo Tianji insipidly said, don't have any doubts. In fact, from the beginning, I have been divining your fate and everyone's fate. The conclusion is that it is a mess. Everything in the world has its own path to follow. Whether it is the stars, the sun, the moon, or even the gods and saints, they all have their own paths to follow. But you don't have it. Therefore, I boldly speculate that you are the so-called escaped one in the land of the heavenly law. The greatest variable in the world. You are the greatest variable. You can definitely change a lot. Even if the entire world is completely changed and overturned, I will not be surprised. It is because you are the greatest variable that we will walk with you for our entire lives. Beside you, we will all return to the chaos and become completely unpredictable. Our path will return to the same place as you. It is also a variable, a place without limits. And Mo Tianji said, speaking of which, it is more or less a little complicated. However, it can already be said that the fate of the Calamity Sword this time is very different. It is definitely different. If it is the same as the previous few times, then wouldn't your fate be the same as the previous 8 masters of the Calamity Sword? And wouldn't Du Xing and I also have to go through that inhumane path to fight the heavenly demons? In fact, you, the greatest variable, have already eliminated this possibility from the beginning. Therefore, from then on, our path was already different from the previous Calamity Swords. Why can't there be people with the same surname in the Calamity Sword? And Mo Tianji said, regarding this, I think it is probably because the Calamity Sword had to leave after the previous masters and the Calamity Sword united the world. However, perhaps because of the compensation from the heavenly law, it gave his bloodline a chance to reproduce for 10,000 years. Therefore, there are big clans. Since it is a big clan, there must not be people with the same surname. If there are people with the same surname, there can only be 8 or 7 of them. Anyway, it can't be big. As for why there can't be women in the Calamity Sword, it is because, in this world, men are always superior to women. Under normal circumstances, the bloodline of the later generations is dominated by the male surname. Therefore, by the same logic, for the sake of the word big, there can't be a woman in the Calamity Sword. Of course, ever since I found out about this, I have another bold guess. And Mo Tianji said, that is, since ancient times, there has been a star array. That is the star array. This array takes unlimited fate and gathers the killing god from all directions. This is the star array and the world's #1 fate-killing array. And the ultimate goal of the Calamity Sword is to exterminate the heavenly demons. Therefore, I have a bold guess. The Calamity Sword from generation to generation is everywhere in the heavenly imperial court. Together with us, it is the killing god from all directions and the killing array from all directions. Why can't there be women in the Calamity Sword? There is another problem. Even if the previous master of the Calamity Sword has died, where did the family members of the previous master of the Calamity Sword go? With the legend of the master of the Calamity Sword, their lovers shouldn't be ordinary people. And Mo Tianji's expression was calm. All the information only says that the immediate family members of the master of the Calamity Sword mysteriously disappeared. There has never been any record of their deaths. If that is the case, where did the immediate family members go? Maybe 1 or 2 families are disheartened and live in seclusion in the mountains and forests, never coming out. But it is impossible for all the descendants of the master of the Calamity Sword to be like this. Therefore, I have a bold guess. These people have been moved away. They are not dead. At least, they didn't die in an accident. Chu Yang was shocked. Mo Tianji's guess shocked him quite a bit. However, Mo Tianji didn't give him a chance to speak. He continued, "If my guess is correct, I have another bold question. Did the previous master of the Calamity Sword really die? Since the heavens have arranged such an exquisite killing array and such a miraculous passage, then why are the heavens so merciless to heroes like the master of the Calamity Sword? This doesn't seem to fit the meaning of the heavenly law. The heavenly law is fair. If this is the case, where is the justice?" Mo Tianji continued. "Therefore I have a bold guess. The previous master of the Calamity Sword might not have died. In our generation, a woman unexpectedly appeared in the land of Calamity. She has the same surname as another Calamity Sword and is the lover of the current master of the Calamity Sword. Why is this so? Is Mo Layer not qualified enough? Why does it have to be Qing Wu? Therefore, I have a conclusion. From our generation, the mission of the Calamity Sword will come to an end. The final variable also includes the mission to completely stop the future. Let's end everything here and draw the end. Another point is that the previous Calamity Sword can have a woman. They can have the same surname. This is for the continuity of the bloodline in the heavenly layer. But in your generation, in our generation, do we still need to build a big clan in this heavenly layer?" Mo Tianji smiled disdainfully. "Since we've already come this far, how can we be satisfied with establishing a so-called clan in this heavenly layer continent? How can we be satisfied? If we really want to build a clan, we have to at least reach the heavenly layer. After we become the supreme existence in that area, we will consider building our own clan and establishing our name." Chapter 16-15. Mo Tianji smiled and said, "When the previous generation succeeded, they were not young anymore. It's reasonable for them to have wives and descendants. How old are we now? Among all the brothers, who actually has descendants? I believe that in less than a year, we will be able to rush up. Then, even if we want to build a new big clan in the heavenly layer, who will do it? Who has the time?" Mo Tianji laughed and said, "Boss Chu, our path is already different. It's fundamentally different from the previous generations. In summary, this is the biggest difference between the current sword master of the heavenly layer and the previous generations." Mo Tianji smiled and said, "Do you understand now? Why are you still worried? You're really looking for trouble." Chu Yang thought for a while and said, "You're right. If that's the case, I'm afraid we've already become a huge variable. Since we're variables, even if there's something abnormal, it can still be understood as normal." He laughed and said, "And you're right. Why are we still building big clans in the heavenly layer continent? We really don't have the time. If we want to build big clans, we should do it in a higher plane." "That's right." Mo Tianji smiled and said, "The oldest among us is no more than 20 years old. But we are already at the top of this world. So, if we don't do something, we will be letting down the long years to come." Chu Yang burst into laughter. He could hear the complacency in Mo Tianji's tone when he spoke. "Let's go back to the topic. What's the next step?" Chu Yang asked. "Of course I have plans. Now that everyone's strength has improved greatly, there are too many things that we can do. However, I still need to see your attitude, especially the other clans." "What are you going to do?" Mo Tianji said. "So, I haven't made the final decision. Everything will be decided by your will." Chu Yang nodded and said, "The big clans and the law enforcement officers. There are enemies now. Now the Lan clan is gone, and so is the Li clan. There are only 7 big clans left. I heard that the Shi clan only has a few small fish left. Its strength is almost gone. The Ling family. I have a pretty good impression of this family. As for the other families, that will depend on their circumstances in the future. However, I will definitely not allow the Xiao family and the Chen family to survive. I will definitely fulfill the promise I made that day." Chu Yang's eyes were bloodshot. He said, "Wei Wuyan died in the hands of the Chen clan. This hatred has already declared that we cannot live under the same sky. As for the Shao clan, they are despicable, shameless, and despicable. I don't like them either, so. Shao clan, Chen clan? Mo Tianji's eyes narrowed. He slowly nodded and said, Since that's the case, our initial goal is to destroy these two clans. The fate of the great clan that had ruled the heavenly layer for tens of thousands of years was determined by the conversation between the two of them. The unpredictability of the world was nothing more than this. Yes, Chu Jiang said. However, there's still the extraterrestrial demons. We must not take this lightly. Even though our strength has improved greatly now, we still cannot let down our guard against the huge threat that is the extraterrestrial demons. I understand. Mo Tianji said. This time, we will go straight to the Yi clan. The Heavenly Cauldron Grand Meeting is about to begin. This time is our chance. Perhaps we can settle many things at once in this grand meeting. Chu Yang smiled and nodded. Yes. Since that's the case, our first stop will be the Heavenly Cauldron Grand Meeting. After an unusually lively barbecue, the brothers packed up properly. Under Chu Yang's command, 11 people flew out of the elf forest like meteors. At this moment, the continent was in an uproar. Tribulation, Sword Master, tribulation, extraterrestrial demons, the consequences of the great clans surrounding the Li clan, the emergence of the Three Stars Divine clan, everything had gathered together during this period of time, and it was truly overwhelming. Even the calmest martial artists would be flustered at this moment. They didn't know where to go. The martial world had officially entered a chaotic era. However, no one knew how long this chaotic era would last. As the saying goes, heroes are born in troubled times. Countless people with ulterior motives began to stir. They were ready to take a share of the spoils in this troubled world. Therefore, everyone had their own plans and schemes. Right now, the continent was like a pot of porridge that had been cooked to a pulp, and was stewing in a mess. However, at this extremely tense juncture, a sudden piece of news exploded out of nowhere and resounded in everyone's ears. The Diwu clan, a vassal clan of the Zhuge clan, suddenly declared independence and rose up again in the heavenly layer continent. And the person in charge was Diwu Qingro, who was known to be invincible. The moment this news came out, the already chaotic Jianghu was like a pot of boiling oil that was suddenly splashed with a ladle of water. It exploded. There was a boom. In recent days, it could be said that there were frequent anomalies in the upper three heavens. Many major events had taken place. First, the legendary brother Tribulation, who had been away for 10,000 years, had reappeared and announced that the doomsday of the big clans was coming. 3 big clans that had been standing for more than 10,000 years had fallen one after another. Even their chickens and dogs had not been spared. Then, a new aristocratic clan had risen up and was in the limelight. However, it had caused countless disturbances. The long-awaited Tianding Grand Meeting was about to start again. People from all over the world gathered in the bustling capital. The capital was located in the territory of the Yi clan. The ordinary people attending the meeting didn't know that many earth-shattering changes were about to happen in the martial world. Even if some well-informed people knew a little, they didn't know that the situation had become so serious. The only thing that was recognized by the people of Jianghu was that the Tianding Grand Meeting was about to be held again. This grand meeting provided a great opportunity for all the martial artists in the world to reach the sky in a single bound. So, they came one after another excitedly, wave after wave, wave after wave, wave after wave, everyone gathered together and talked excitedly. They talked about the Tribulation Sword Master who was now as powerful as the sun, and about the great clans that were still like giants. Yes, since the Li clan was besieged and annihilated, the Lan clan was destroyed, and most of its experts were killed. The Shi clan was completely dead, and only a few people were left. Naturally, they didn't deserve to be called a great clan anymore, therefore, there were only great clans left now. However, these great clans were still unshakable giants in the eyes of ordinary people. Of course, there were still the law enforcement officers. As for the mysterious extraterrestrial demon, it seemed that they didn't know anything about it. What was it? I wonder if it's delicious? For people who didn't know what the extraterrestrial demon meant, the extraterrestrial demon was nothing. Not even a bird. There was no need to take it to heart at all. Even if the extraterrestrial demon was really very strong, there were tens of billions of people here. Even a mouthful of saliva from each person would be enough to drown the extraterrestrial demon. Of course, those who really knew the inside story didn't dare to think so. This was also the so-called "the ignorant are fearless." The current Tianding Grand Meeting has long changed. The current Tianding Grand Meeting is no longer the Tianding Grand Meeting of the past. I don't even know what the Dharma Supreme wants to do. At a secret meeting, Yi Qinshan said in an unusually heavy voice. Everyone present had very heavy expressions on their faces. In fact, their expressions were very ugly. Heavy and ugly, as if someone had died in their family. This meeting was of an absolutely secret level. There were very few participants, only a total of 8 people. Other than Yi Qinshan, Xiao Qingyu, Zhuge Cangqiong, Ling Muyang, Qining Feng, Shi Peixiang and Xiu, there was also a leader of a new clan, Diwu Qingru. Diwu Qingru established the Diwu clan at this extremely delicate time, and announced his intention to break away from the Zhuge clan. Once this news was out, there were actually a lot of followers. Diwu Qingru's reputation rose like the sun during the Northwest encirclement. Even if he wasn't as famous as the Tribulation Sword Master, he was still above Motianji, the strategist of Tribulation. Everyone knew that if they followed Diwu Qingru, unless they were in a certain death situation, Diwu Qingru would always be able to save their own lives. And in this chaotic world, what was the most important thing? Naturally, it was their own life. To the people of the martial world who lived on the edge of their blades all year round, safety was the most important thing. Only when they were alive would their family be safe. Once his little life was over, his family, who had once been well-fed, would immediately become worse than slaves. Under the guidance of certain people, intentionally or otherwise, more and more people joined Diwu Qingru's side. In just a short span of a month, the new Diwu clan had already gradually grown stronger. Now, Diwu Qingru had gathered more than 100 supreme-level experts under his command at an unknown time. With such strength, even the old Zhuge clan could only reluctantly acknowledge the position of the Diwu clan. Now that there were internal and external troubles, the Zhuge clan really couldn't afford another civil war. Although Zhuge Cangqiong still felt an indescribable unhappiness when he saw Diwu Qingru now, he knew in his heart that the current Diwu Qingru was no longer the tactician who lived with his tail between his legs in the Zhuge clan. Now, he was the master of a top clan, a big shot who was on equal footing with him. Although the foundation of this top clan was still a little weak, or even completely without any foundation, it was just a nouveau riche in its bones, but it could no longer be ignored. They didn't even dare to look down on it. Yes, they didn't dare to. No one dared to look down on Diwu Qingru. In the past, King of Hell Chu didn't dare to, and now, the ancestors of the big clans didn't dare to either. Shi Paoli, the ancestor of the Shi clan, was currently sitting on a chair with a pale face. Streaks of black light swam on his face from time to time. Occasionally, he would cough and spit out a mouthful of blood. As the only survivor of the Shi clan, he barely managed to escape here after being injured by the extraterrestrial demon. Until now, he hadn't recovered. He didn't even know if he could truly recover. What's the situation now? Xiao Qingyu took a deep breath, his sharp eyes emitting a frightening glow. About the Dharma Supreme being the successor of the extraterrestrial demon. How much credibility is there? Regarding this news, I have already completely sealed it off to prevent panic. After all, this statement is too shocking. Once it is exposed, I'm afraid there will be chaos in the world, Yi Qinshan said solemnly. But I can guarantee in the name of my ancestors and the safety of my descendants. There is absolutely no falsehood in this matter. The Dharma Supreme is indeed the successor of the extraterrestrial demon, and one who has been deeply possessed by the extraterrestrial demon. It is completely possible to say that he is the extraterrestrial demon. Hearing this answer, the eyes of Xiao Qingyu and the others darkened. Some didn't dare to use too much force, only taking a light breath. Everyone's hearts were indescribably heavy. They didn't want this statement to be true, but at this moment, they had no choice but to believe it. The world was about to be in chaos. The Dharma Supreme was the extraterrestrial demon. What did this statement mean? How serious were the consequences? It meant that the heavy heavens continent would be completely overturned. Everyone present was well aware of this point. If that is the case, then why did the Dharma Supreme still order the law enforcement officers to initiate this Tianding Grand meeting? Xiao Qinyu's Adam's apple bobbed up and down. With some difficulty, he said, "What is his motive?" Yi Qinshan coughed and flipped open a few pieces of paper in front of him. He said, "We can't conclude what his motive is yet, but I have a few pieces of news here. Let me explain. In the morning 13 days ago, 3 supreme martial artist experts from the mountains and rivers on the left bank died. When their corpses were discovered, they had already decomposed, and their bones had decayed. It has been confirmed that the corpses are not poisonous. However, the flowers and trees around the corpses all withered. Within a radius of 1,000 feet, everything, including ants and earthworms, died without exception. It has been confirmed that this is the result of the extraterrestrial demon energy. In the evening 13 days ago, 17 martial saint and monarch level experts died 500 miles away from the left bank. Their manner of death is the same as above. In the middle of the night 13 days ago, 2 martial saint experts died 700 miles away from the left bank. In the early morning 12 days ago, a 5th grade supreme martial artist expert who came to participate in the Tianding Grand Meeting was found dead by the roadside. 10 days ago, in the northern part of the city last night, a total of 300 people died. The weakest among them was an emperor-level martial artist. Yi Qinshan closed the pieces of paper that recorded the information of the deaths and said seriously, "From this, we can conclude that the extraterrestrial demons, or heavenly supremes, have already started a massacre by hook or by crook. Up till now, the weakest among the deceased was an emperor-level martial artist. This is because there are even more king-level martial artists in this area during this period of time, but they haven't been harmed at all. There's another point. All of the deceased died in the same way. Their pupils were dilated and there wasn't any spiritual energy around them. Therefore, I can conclude that the reason why they killed people was to seize the spiritual energy of these people. To kill so many people without any scruples shows that they need an extremely large amount of spiritual energy." Yi Qinshan said solemnly. "Now, the Tianding Grand Meeting that they are actively organizing is obviously going to be held as scheduled. This means that they need even more spiritual energy. How much spiritual energy do they need exactly? How many more people do they need to kill?" Everyone's expressions changed drastically. Spiritual energy might sound mysterious and unfathomable to ordinary people, but high-level martial artists all knew that spiritual energy did indeed exist. Whether it was an ordinary person or a martial artist, after deep contemplation, regardless of whether their spirit was destroyed or they died a normal death, there would be spiritual energy lingering around the corpse for a period of time and not dissipating for a very long time. In the ordinary sense, these energies were completely invisible and untouchable. They belonged to the supernatural category, but they really existed. For example, if someone had just died in a place, even if someone completely unaware of the matter walked past the place for a certain period of time, they would also feel a kind of eerie feeling. Ordinary people thought of it as intuition. But actually it wasn't. This was actually the effect of spiritual energy. No matter which world it was in, it was the same for all. However, according to what Yi Qinshan had said, things were getting serious now. This is my personal opinion. Don't criticize me if I disagree. People killed by the extraterrestrial demons or the Dharma Supreme actually didn't have any spiritual energy fluctuations around their corpses. This meant that the spiritual energy had already been devoured by them. Such a situation would only occur if it was completely devoured. Because even if it was destroyed and disintegrated, there would still be some remnants and it wouldn't disappear completely. Cough, cough, cough. Shijiashir coughed with difficulty and said hoarsely, That's right. When the extraterrestrial demons massacred my clan, I also felt that something was wrong back then. It's only now that I understand that all the people who were killed back then had lost their spiritual energy. Damn it, that damned demonic creature actually made my entire clan. As he spoke, he suddenly panted heavily. His eyes reddened slightly and he clenched his teeth and shut his mouth. His foundation of 10,000 years and all his family members had all perished in one night. And they couldn't be any more dead. Their spirits were destroyed and they were consigned to eternal damnation. Even for this old man who was 10,000 years old, every time he thought of it, he felt inexplicably sorrowful and couldn't control himself. Shurjashur almost shed tears. Then, he circulated his energy and a burst of mist rose from his eyes, evaporating his tears into mist. In that case, the purpose of the Tianding Grand Meeting this time is to attract people so that the extraterrestrial demons or the Dharma Supreme can seize the spiritual energy of martial emperors and above for their own use. Shuga Tsengchung's voice was very heavy. There were plenty of strange martial arts in the heaven realm, but such a terrifying ability to seize one's spiritual energy was something that he had never heard of before. I think it's very likely that the extraterrestrial demons were injured earlier and needed the help of spiritual energy to heal, said Yi Qianqian. With the information provided by Yi Zui, he could easily deduce this point. He said dispassionately, "The reason why I sealed off the news and kept it a complete secret is because since they want to use the spiritual energy, they have to come out and hunt high-level martial artists. To us, this is also an opportunity to lure them out. If it's just to destroy the Tianding Grand Meeting this time, we can naturally do it easily. But in that case, there's a high possibility that we'll expose that we already know about their background. If they hide their tracks, we'll probably never be able to find them again. If we wait for them to recover in secret, we won't even have the chance to retaliate." Chapter 16:16. Yi Qianqian heaved a long sigh. "Today, I have urgently gathered all of you here, for this matter. How should we go about it? We must make a decision today. Time really waits for no man." The reason why I said that time waits for no man is because I received a secret intelligence report earlier. Under the Dharma Supreme's summons, all the higher-ups of the law enforcement officers have already turned out in full force, including the Patriarch group that has not been mobilized for a long time. They will be here by tomorrow afternoon at the latest. Yi Qianqian added, "I believe everyone understands without me having to say it. There are quite a number of low-grade supreme martial artists among these people. Some of them are even old monsters who have lived for more than 10,000 years and are from the same generation as the Moon Breeze couple. Many of them have fought with them before and lost only by a small margin. Even if these people are not as strong as the Moon Breeze couple, they are definitely extremely difficult opponents. How should we deal with them? This is another question that we have to consider." Yi Qianqian laughed bitterly and shook his head, somewhat speechless. Deal with them, make decisions. Everyone was speechless for a moment. The large-scale arrival of the law enforcement officers this time could be said to have truly turned out in full force. Obviously, it was the Dharma Supreme's request that even the world order was used. Was there a need to ask why the Dharma Supreme would make such a request? None of the people present were fools. How could they not understand by now? The Dharma Supreme or the extraterrestrial demon urgently needed the spirits of a large number of experts. Now that he had first used the name of the law enforcement officers to hold the Tianding Grand Meeting and gathered a large number of experts in one place, and then gathered all the experts on his side, it was easy to imagine what he was planning to do. Faced with such an almost unbeatable iron current, what should they do? Yi Qianqian wasn't the only one who was feeling uncertain right now. Even the rest of the people present were at a loss. Who did the Dharma Supreme really want to deal with in such an unscrupulous manner? It was none other than the big clans or the Tribulation Sword Master. As for the other itinerant practitioners of the martial world, even if there were some experts, they would not have as many experts as the big clans. Everyone frowned and kept silent with gloomy expressions. It wasn't that they were pretending to be reserved, but they really had nothing to say and were unable to respond. Yi Qingshan said, "Right now, we really don't have the time to hesitate anymore. Two extremely powerful enemies are already closing in on us, right in front of us. Based on the unscrupulous way that the Heavenly Demon and the Dharma Supreme do things, they have already shown that they don't care about us at all. They only see us as their targets, their food ingredients, and their nourishing medicine." That day, the moment he appeared, he swallowed the entire Shur clan. After that, he slaughtered his way to this day. Also, according to the signs, the Tribulation Sword Master has obtained the 8th fragment of the Tribulation Sword. This means that he is about to ascend to the upper stage of the heavenly layer and begin his destiny as the Master of Calamity Sword. Originally, the Tribulation Sword Master and the Heavenly Demon could be said to be irreconcilable, but the Tribulation Sword Master's primary target is still us. Even if the Heavenly Demon is destroyed, the Tribulation Sword Master will not let us go. Even if the Tribulation Sword Master is dead, the Heavenly Demons won't let us go. The great clans are in grave danger. For a moment, Yi Qingshan felt a little mentally and physically exhausted. There was a tiger at the front door and a wolf at the back door. Their side was really in a perilous situation. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they would die. In just a few days' time, the situation had taken a turn for the worse. Almost before they could react, the great clans that were once famous throughout the entire heavenly layer were already at a disadvantage. Moreover, it was an absolute disadvantage, even to the point of being in a hopeless situation. Xiao Qingyu sighed and said, "Previously, when the war in the northwest was about to end, the Tribulation Sword Master Chu Yan once said that there would be heavenly demons wreaking havoc on the world. He even suggested to me that we should join forces to eliminate the heavenly demons first, and eliminate the heavenly demons once and for all. But I rejected him." "You rejected him?" All the elder masters turned to look at Xiao Qingyu. Their gazes were as if they were looking at a fool. If it was any other time, no matter who or what force dared to look at Xiao Qingyu with such a gaze, the Xiao clan's ancestors would definitely be uprooted by the Xiao clan. Their entire clan would be wiped out and not even a chicken or dog would be spared. But now, in such a grim situation, it was rare for the Tribulation Sword Master to take the initiative to express goodwill and join forces to eliminate the heavenly demons. "Xiao Qingyu, you actually rejected him? If you're not a fool, then who is?" If it weren't for their old friendship, all the elder masters wanted to ask the Xiao clan's ancestor if he didn't have a brain or if there was mold in his brain that day. If he wasn't kicked by a donkey or caught by a door frame again, how could he reject such a great opportunity that would only bring him benefits and no harm? If we could let the heavenly demons and the Tribulation Sword Master fight each other, we would sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. No matter which side won in the end, they would definitely suffer some losses. Then, we could reap the benefits and eliminate the two biggest threats in one fell swoop. That would be a wonderful thing. But you actually rejected him. Xiao Qingyu's face turned red. At that time, how would I know that things would deteriorate to such an extent? Although we have seen the extraterrestrial demons in ancient books, there are very few descriptions of them. Who would have thought that they would be so dangerous? Based on the situation at that time, the Li clan was about to be destroyed. How could we stop just because the Master of the Calamity Sword said that we should work together? Besides, my younger brother Qinlei died in their hands. Great families and tribulation legend can't coexist in this world. Even now, even though I know the situation is so serious, even if Tribulation Sword Master suggests joining hands again, I will still refuse. This is a matter of principle. Second brother Xiao, your thoughts are too extreme. Ling Liang frowned. His eyes were as cold as ice. He said calmly, "Things have different priorities. Could it be that the safety of the people and the entire continent is not as important to second brother Xiao as your brother coming alone?" Xiao Qingyu was speechless. After a long while he said, "Personally, I insist on my original opinion. I don't agree to join forces with the Tribulation Sword Master, but that's just my opinion. I won't interfere with everyone's decision. Besides, this time, I told you what happened last time because I wanted to tell you that, if you can join forces with the Tribulation Sword Master, I believe he will be interested. Brother Tribulation takes the well-being of the people in the world as his responsibility. We invited him with righteousness. The chances of us joining forces are great. But the problem is, what will happen after the cooperation? Chiu was a handsome old man who looked old but was still handsome. He frowned. Besides, what about the cooperation? Can we really work together sincerely? He didn't say it explicitly, but everyone knew what he meant. The big clans had always been enemies with the Tribulation Sword Master. Now, even if they were forced to work together temporarily, would they be stabbed in the back in the process? What about tripping each other up? Take the simplest example. When the heavenly demons were about to attack, would the masters of the big clans risk their lives to protect Tribulation? When the heavenly demons were fighting, if the leader of the big clans was seriously injured and his life was hanging by a thread, would the Tribulation Sword Master generously give it to him? If it was the former, the big clans wouldn't help him. As for the latter, if they put themselves in his shoes, the heavenly demons had been destroyed. Giving him the divine medicine was equal to helping the enemy. Only a fool would do something like that. Was the Tribulation Sword Master a fool? It didn't look like it. If they worked together like that, what was the difference between not working together at all? Because that kind of situation was absolutely possible. They even had to take care of the allies around them at all times, guarding against the allies who would stab them in the back. The number one teaching of the big clans in the past 10,000 years was to deal with the Tribulation Sword Master. They regarded the Tribulation Sword Master as the biggest imaginary enemy. The idea of hostility had been deeply rooted in people's hearts. How could they work together sincerely all of a sudden? Zhuge Zhengqiang frowned and said, "Nothing is absolute in the world. With the current situation, it's not impossible for us to work together. Fighting together is not the only way to cooperate. As long as we work together to deal with the heavenly demons at a certain time, everything will be done with the premise of eliminating the heavenly demons. Don't fight among yourselves," Qin Yingfeng said sarcastically. Don't fight among yourselves? Who doesn't know how to say nice words? Do you think it's possible? There will definitely be discomfort. Ask yourselves honestly, who can guarantee that they won't have any evil intentions? They're just lying to themselves. Shut up, all of you! Yi Qinchin shouted sternly. Everyone stopped talking. The big clans are fighting the Tribulation Sword Master for survival. We know that this is the general trend, but when it comes to personal life and death, we have no choice but to struggle and go against the natural order. We have no choice. However, the descent of the heavenly demons is a matter of righteousness. Between personal survival and righteousness, is there even a need to say how to choose? What's there to fight about? Although Yi Qinchin's voice was low, it was extremely stern. All the patriarchs lowered their heads and stopped talking. We may not be good people, but we haven't fallen to the point of being traitors to the entire human race. Yi Qinchin's voice was like iron. The heavenly demons are powerful, but we can only die. How can we be calculative about the Tribulation Sword Master at a time like this? Do you know what you're doing? Ling Liang said loudly. That's right. There's no need to be calculative at a time like this. Big Boss Yi, I originally wanted to fight you to the death before I die, but on account of what you said, I won't fight you. Yi Qinchin let out a wry laugh. He knew why Ling Liang was doing this, but at this moment, he really wasn't in the mood to bring up those things at all. Yi Qinchin turned to look at Diwu Qingru, who hadn't spoken all this while. He asked, Clan Master Diwu, what do you think? Everyone turned to look at him. Everyone felt somewhat uncomfortable and uneasy with Diwu Qingru sitting here. In the past 10,000 years, when had there ever been an outsider in a top-secret high-level meeting that originally only belonged to the big clans? However, now that the Diwu clan had appeared out of nowhere and risen to power in a high-profile manner, taking advantage of the situation and ascending the heavenly steps, even if they had some power, what did that count for? They were just a nouveau riche. Chapter 16-17. Diwu Qingru raised his head, a faint smile on his face. He said in a gentle voice, I came here today only to listen to the teachings of the elders. After that, no matter what decision the elders make, I will abide by it. How would I dare to criticize you? This sentence was said very humbly. It could be said that it was humble to a considerable extent. His attitude was so respectful that it was impossible to dislike it. Only then did everyone's expressions soften. Zhuge Sangqiong snorted and said, The law enforcement officers have always secretly supported the Diwu clan. I heard that when Diwu clan master was in the northwest, there were even experts provided by the law enforcement officers as personal bodyguards. I wonder, what is the relationship between Diwu clan master and the law enforcement officers? Can Diwu clan master explain it to everyone here so as to prevent any misunderstandings from occurring? Zhuge Sangqiong was really annoyed that Diwu Qingru, who was once a servant of his clan, was now on equal footing with him, the master. Now that he was questioning him, as long as Diwu Qingru's response was inappropriate, he would label him as colluding with the law enforcement officers or even the extraterrestrial demon. Diwu Qingru still maintained a faint smile and said, The reason is very simple. It's nothing more than the law enforcement officers wanting to support a new clan, as a nail under the wedge of the big clans. I believe all the elders have already seen this point clearly. Is Clan Master Zhuge trying to test Qingru by asking this question? Zhuge Sangqiong narrowed his eyes and said meaningfully, Oh? Diwu Qingru adjusted his expression and said solemnly, The Dharma Supreme and the law enforcement officers have indeed done a great favor for the Diwu clan today. Qingru has never denied this, nor does he dare to deny it. However, the Dharma Supreme has now been proven to be the extraterrestrial demon, or at least the successor of the extraterrestrial demon. His identity has become the enemy of all humans in the heavens. Although Diwu Qingru is not talented, he does not dare to disregard the greater good for humanity for a small favor. Just when this news was released, I have already sent away the experts who originally belonged to the law enforcement officers back to the law enforcement officers. If the elders are still worried, the Diwu clan is willing to be the vanguard when the day comes to fight against the extraterrestrial demon. The so-called innocence is nothing more than life and death. Diwu Qingru said word by word. His words could be said with extreme sincerity. And they were indeed Diwu Qingru's true thoughts. No matter what the Dharma Supreme's identity was, what his intentions were, or how great his kindness was, you are now extraterrestrial demon. As a human, Diwu Qingru is irreconcilable with you. This was a matter of principle. This was an unshakable understanding. Zhuge Sangqiong smiled sinisterly and said, I'm not doubting Clan Head Diwu's actions. It's just that with Clan Head Diwu's wisdom, why didn't you try to make these people stay this time? If you had exposed the Dharma Supreme's true colors, explained the pros and cons, and truly taken him in for your own use, wouldn't that be a good thing? Wouldn't it be a pity to let them go just like that? Isn't that unwise? That's right. That's not a good idea. When the other progenitors heard this, their expressions changed slightly. They secretly thought that Zhuge Sangqiong's actions were really too much. His words were purely nitpicking at Diwu Qingru. Diwu Qingru's expression turned serious and he said coldly, If that's the case, why don't all of you just put this matter on the table and call on the whole world to fight against the Dharma Supreme and the extraterrestrial demon? Isn't this better? Why was there a need to be so secretive? With your reputations, I believe that as long as you make a call, there will definitely be as many followers as the clouds. Why should you fear a mere extraterrestrial demon? Zhuge Sangqiong choked. The meaning behind Diwu Qingru's words was very clear. If one were to really talk about righteousness, it would be accompanied by the drawbacks of leaking information and alerting the enemy. Zhuge Sangqiong, who was also known as a wise man, actually couldn't think of this and still had the cheek to ask such a question. It was really too embarrassing. Hearing Diwu Qingru's sharp counterattack, the other old monsters couldn't help but smile. Even the seriously injured Shi Bao Shao couldn't help but smile. Diwu Qingru's counterattack was really powerful. It directly made Zhuge Sangqiong speechless, and even ashamed to face him. Actually, alerting the enemy or whatever was being understated. If one were to really go overboard, why didn't he dare to publicly call for the whole world to come together? The reason was even simpler. The Dharma Supreme had already been in his current position for a full 10,000 years. 10,000 years, the Dharma Supreme's rallying power in the Nine Heavens continent, to the people of the martial world and even ordinary people, definitely far exceeded that of the great clans. Once the news was spread, the great clans wouldn't have any evidence at all. Even with Yi Zhe as a witness, too many people's words carried little weight. Moreover, as a direct descendant of the Yi clan, such words would be even more unbelievable. Once the matter was exposed, the kind of chaos it would cause was unimaginable. Even if Yi Zhe admitted that he had once joined the devil, it wouldn't be of any help. In fact, the Dharma Supreme would even accuse the great clans of rebelling and fabricating such a big story to frame the number one law enforcement officer. There had to be a major conspiracy. In everyone's estimation, such a statement seemed to be even more tenable than the great clan's reason. After all, the Dharma Supreme was almost the number one person in the Nine Heavens. What benefits could the extraterrestrial demon give him to make him give up this honor? No one would believe it. However, on the other hand, to say that the great clans were slandering the Dharma Supreme in order to shake his prestige and lofty status was the logical thing to do. If that was really the case, the great clans didn't need the Tribulation Sword Master to come personally, and they would be done for. Besides, there was another important point: they talked about the extraterrestrial demon every day. But in the entire Nine Heavens, who had actually seen the extraterrestrial demon? Who knew the danger of the extraterrestrial demon? Those who had seen the extraterrestrial demon were all dead. There were only three exceptions: the Dharma Supreme, Yi Zhe, and Shi Bao Shao. However, the words of the latter two couldn't be used as solid evidence. If they really spread the news now, they would definitely be courting death. Zhuge Zhengqiang finding trouble with Diwu Qingru just now was completely untenable. If Diwu Qingru really wanted to instigate the defection of those law enforcement officers, the biggest possibility was that he would be killed on the spot. As law enforcement officers who had been led by the Dharma Supreme for many years, when they couldn't distinguish the situation clearly, should they choose to believe Diwu Qingru or the Dharma Supreme? To law enforcement officers, this was something they didn't have to consider at all. Even if the person instigating them was a wise man of the generation, it was no exception. After all, Diwu Qingru was still a little too inexperienced. Yi Qianqian said. Now that things have come to this, the Tianding Grand Meeting this time shall be decided as such. His gaze met Xiao Qinyu's, Ling Muyang's, Zhuge Zhengqiang's, and the rest's. Everyone nodded slowly, expressing their agreement. Gather all the experts, don't keep any so-called trump cards anymore. At this juncture of life and death, if we still retain our strength, that's purely courting death. Yi Qianqian slowly stood up and said, Use all our efforts and strength. Get rid of the extraterrestrial demon first. Eliminating the demon threat is the most urgent matter. Yes. Everyone agreed at the same time. As for the Tribulation Sword Master, we still won't cooperate with them, but try not to have any conflicts with them during this period of time. Let them decide what to do and what to do. If possible, let them know a little about our intentions. If we can't eliminate the extraterrestrial demon this time, everyone will be finished together. Then, there's nothing more to say. If we're lucky enough to eliminate the extraterrestrial demon, we'll discuss the Tribulation Sword Master's matter again. We'll fight again. Yi Qianqian's deep eyes shone brightly. Against the extraterrestrial demon, we will never yield and never surrender. It's the same for the Tribulation Sword Master. Even if he died in the hands of the Tribulation Sword Master, this world is ultimately still under the control of those below the heavens. It hasn't fallen into the hands of the extraterrestrial demon race. Just this point alone is enough. Yi Qianqian, Xiao Qinyu, Ling Muyang, and the rest's lifetime achievements aside, at this critical moment, they sternly displayed the strength of character and boldness that heroes of a generation should have. How magnificent! All the old people present felt their blood boiling at this moment. Never yield and never surrender. No matter who it is, it's the same. Everyone, get ready, Yi Qingshan said. Everyone knows how to arrange for all the information and how to arrange for the manpower. I won't say much. Diwu Qingru, Shugat Sangqiong, both of you are known for being wise and resourceful. The arrangements this time will be coordinated and discussed by both of you. You must come up with a plan that's the most complete and closest to success. No matter the manpower, only success. The eyes of Yi Qingshan, Ling Nuyang and the rest shone as they looked at Shugat Sangqiong and Diwu Qingru with great solemnity. They said word by word in a deep voice. Please, regardless of the relationship between the Diwu clan and the Zhuge clan in the past. If the two of you still can't let go of the past at this juncture. Shugat Sangqiong stood up proudly and said loudly, Does Big Brother Yi look down on me so much? Even if I'm a blockhead, I can still distinguish between what's more important and what's more important. Diwu Qingru nodded slowly and said seriously, I'm willing to work hard to settle this battle first. Everyone nodded lightly. Xiao Qingyu. Yi Qingshan turned around and said seriously, You know what I'm going to say. Xiao Qingyu stood up suddenly and said loudly, My younger brother died in the hands of the Tribulation Sword Master, but I, Xiao Qingyu, swear right here and now that as long as the extraterrestrial demons are not destroyed, I won't find trouble with the Tribulation Sword Master. If I go against this oath, I'll die. He smiled sadly. Even if the blood feud is as deep as the ocean and irreconcilable, I, Xiao Qingyu, still understand. I, Xiao Qingyu, also understand that I'm a human being. Those who aren't of my race must be killed. The demonic plague is overwhelming, and I'll do my best. That's all there is to it. Good. Well said. Yi Qingshan turned around and left with his hands behind his back. His voice drifted over lightly. Brothers, although we're a few people short this time, we can once again fight the enemy side by side and join forces to destroy the extraterrestrial demons. His voice gradually faded into the distance and drifted over. I'm really very relieved. In the room, a few old men stood bleakly. Everyone had complex expressions on their faces, all sorts of feelings welling up in them. They had long forgotten how long it had been since the brothers fought the enemy side by side once again. It was just that a few people were short. The emotions contained in this sentence were like raging waves that turned the world upside down. Lan Buhui had died in the hands of a robber. Chapter 16-18. Xiao Qingyu stood there in a daze. There was an indescribable desolation on his face. He seemed to have aged several decades in an instant. He murmured, If I had known that the extraterrestrial demon would be like this, why would I? He shook his head and left swiftly, and only a wisp of an extremely heavy aura remained behind him. Ling Muyang stood ramrod straight like a sword. His gaze was sharp and filled with nostalgia. He said softly, Xiao Qingyu, after this matter with the heavenly demon is over, if you are still alive, let's fight to the death. His voice was very soft, but Xiao Qingyu, who was already far away, immediately responded. He sighed softly and said, You want to avenge Chunbua? Okay, I'll wait for you. I'll wait for that day to come. Xiao Qingyu was already far away. Autumn couldn't help but sigh. He advised, Muyang, why do you have to do this? You and Chunbua are brothers. Aren't we your brothers too? Isn't second brother Xiao your brother too? How can brothers kill each other like this? Ling Muyang didn't say a word. His face was as white as the white robe he was wearing. Then, he turned and left. Chen Yingfeng sneered and said softly, So righteous. Didn't anyone from the Ling clan go to besiege the Li clan? Why do you have to be so hypocritical? Ling Muyang, who had already walked out, paused. He didn't even turn back. His voice became deeper and deeper. The Li clan can't exist. It must be disbanded. This was the consensus that the Li clan was in trouble back then. I've never denied this. But back then, everyone also communicated that the Li clan can disappear, but Li Chunbua can't. Isn't this the consensus of everyone? With Xiao Qingyu personally taking charge, I thought that at least Li Chunwa's life could be saved. But it was precisely after Xiao Qingyu went that it led to Chunwa's death. Chinning, you can say that I'm hypocritical or that I'm putting on airs. I'll let you say whatever you want. But after this, I'll definitely kill you. Even if you don't say anything, I'll still kill you. You or Xiao Qingyu are no longer my brothers. How can you say that we're killing each other? Ling Muyang shot out like an arrow and disappeared into the darkness of the night along with a swooshing sound. Chen Ningfeng's face instantly turned purple. He was so angry that he couldn't speak. He turned his head and said, Look, this bastard! Mu Yang's temper is like that, don't you know him? Autumn laughed bitterly. Everyone will go and prepare. Let's wait until the war is over, and we can talk about other things if we can survive. Everyone dispersed in an uproar. Diwu Qingro walked at the back. When he walked to the door, he saw a figure in hemp clothing standing with his hands behind his back. Zhuge Sangqiong. He was obviously waiting for him. Diwu Qingro stopped. Senior Zhuge? Zhuge Sangqiong walked with his hands behind his back as he said indifferently, The allied army of the 7 great clans is only here for the Heavenly Cauldron Grand Meeting. If such a grand operation is not completely and thoroughly coordinated, it will definitely bring about chaos. I'm here to discuss this with you. Zhuge Sangqiong pondered for a moment before saying, Also, no matter what, I'm very sorry for my prejudices and attacks against your clan before this. Please understand. This is the clan leader's helplessness, it has nothing to do with anything else. For Zhuge Sangqiong to say something like this, it was equivalent to lowering himself to ask for forgiveness. Who would have thought that in order to fight against the extraterrestrial demons, an old monster who had lived for 10,000 years, would actually lower himself to ask for forgiveness from a junior like Diwu Qingro, a former servant and vassal? Everything was for the sake of the big picture. The common people were the most important. Diwu Qingro's heart shook as he said respectfully, Senior, you're too serious. We have different standpoints, it's just a flaw. If we talk about right and wrong, it would be too petty. This junior sincerely admires Senior's magnanimity. Zhuge Sangqiong sighed and said, Let's find a place to talk. We can communicate a little. That's how it should be. Senior, please. One after another, the leader of a wise clan and a newly promoted peerless military advisor disappeared into the night. It was a pity that Mo Tianji was not here. Otherwise, with the 3 great wise men of the world gathered in one place, no expert in the world would be able to escape from their joint scheme. Even if the target this time was another wise man, the former think tank of tribulation. On the same night, 2,000 miles away, in a very secluded forest, the law enforcement officers' senate and all the top experts of the law enforcement officers were all gathered here, waiting for the Dharma Supreme's next order. I wonder what Lord Dharma Supreme is trying to do by creating such a huge commotion this time? Something extremely important must have happened. Previously, I heard rumors about the appearance of some extraterrestrial demon. Is it true this time? It's possible, but what exactly is the extraterrestrial demon? Although many people here were 10,000 years old monsters, at this moment, they were also speculating. After all, the extraterrestrial demon was really too vague. The danger of the extraterrestrial demon was really hard to understand unless one experienced it personally. He was a little nervous, a little excited, and a little eager to give it a try. There are rumors that the Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon. What a joke. Haha. Then won't we also become extraterrestrial demons? I don't know what the person who started this rumor is thinking, such a low-level rumor. That's right, everyone, stop talking and wait patiently. A dignified voice was heard. The one who spoke was the most senior person in the Senate, Ping Xiaoyun of the law enforcement officers. Ping Xiaoyun was already more than 20,000 years old. After the previous few seniors died, he became the oldest antique in the law enforcement officers. In the entire heavens, other than Wu Jueqing, it was really hard to find anyone who had lived longer than him. Ping Xiaoyun became famous at a young age and joined the law enforcement officers by chance. He started from the bottom and became the head of the Law Enforcement Officers Senate today. He was very famous and no one was unconvinced. He was second only to one person and above everyone else. Even the Dharma Supreme had to bow respectfully to show his respect when he saw him. Ping Xiaoyun's words were naturally effective. In an instant there was complete silence. Under the night sky, a black shadow flashed past. A tall and elegant figure suddenly appeared. His long hair fell over his shoulders and his eyes were as calm as the sea, as if he was the ruler of the world and above the heavens. The Dharma Supreme had finally arrived. Greetings, Lord Dharma Supreme. Under Ping Xiaoyun's lead, the members of the Senate stood up neatly. There were more than 20 people in the Senate, including the top-notch experts of 8th grade supreme martial artists and above from the headquarters of the law enforcement officers. This was the most elite and most powerful force of the law enforcement officers. All of them. This force was so powerful that it could look down on everyone else. It was enough to annihilate any of the aristocratic families and still be able to escape unscathed. And this was only the most powerful force. It did not include the forces of 7th grade supreme martial artists and below that were coming from all directions. Everyone, it has been a long journey. The Dharma Supreme stood with his hands behind his back. His hawk-like eyes scanned everyone's faces. Did anyone encounter any accidents along the way? No. Everyone said in unison, "It has been a long journey, Lord Dharma Supreme. Yes, I have gathered everyone here this time because the situation is unusually serious. There are still 12 days before the official start of the Tianding Grand Meeting, but I have called everyone here in advance to make some arrangements and make some preparations." The Dharma Supreme's eyes flashed black. The situation is unusually serious? Ping Xiaoyun's aged eyes flashed. He was already very old and had never been able to take the final step that belonged to the limit of the heavenly layer. No matter how high his cultivation was, his bodily functions could not resist the erosion of time and had already started to deteriorate. Naturally, he could no longer maintain his youthful appearance. His face was full of wrinkles. When he rolled his eyes, it was as if 2 daggers were shot out from an air-dried cigar. They were extremely sharp. "That's right," the Dharma Supreme said softly. "Everyone must know that the extraterrestrial demon has really appeared." Everyone's faces were solemn. Compared to the aristocratic families, the law enforcement officers had a clearer understanding of the origin of the extraterrestrial demon. This is not the worst news. The moment the extraterrestrial demon appeared, he controlled a few of the aristocratic families and plotted a conspiracy. After many twists and turns, I have seen through the extraterrestrial demon's conspiracy. The extraterrestrial demon is plotting to completely overthrow the law enforcement officers in this Tianding Grand Meeting. He even wants to kill the Tribulation Sword Master and end the legend of Tribulation. He wants to turn the Heavenly Layer continent into the extraterrestrial demon's market, headquarters. The Dharma Supreme heaved a long sigh of relief. The enemy is now hiding in the aristocratic families and has even involved the cooperation of several families. His power can be said to be extremely strong. Moreover, the extraterrestrial demon's cultivation is really high and unfathomable. We may not be his match. Everyone's breathing quickened. This series of bad news had shaken them. Although they knew about the existence and danger of the extraterrestrial demon from ancient books, they had never really faced one. The instinctive fear of the unknown was undoubtedly evident at this moment. Ping Xiaoyun gritted his teeth and said, "We have guarded the heavenly layer continent for our whole lives. Even if we have to die 100 times, we have no regrets. I wonder if the Dharma Supreme has any arrangements for us. We are all a bunch of old bones and have not been able to break through the last stage of collapsing the sky and shattering the void. We don't have many years left to live. We will just fight with the extraterrestrial demon with our lives. No matter how strong the extraterrestrial demon is, there is always hope for us to perish together with him." His gaze turned cold. Those aristocratic families are the descendants of the previous generation's tribulation. How dare they betray their senior's lofty aspirations and collude with the extraterrestrial demon? Their crimes are unforgivable. Even if we have to be smashed to pieces, we will kill all these ungrateful things with our palms. The tribulation has been reincarnated for 10,000 years to end the decay of the previous generation. It is indeed predestined. The Dharma Supreme nodded with gratification. Good. I knew it. We law enforcement officers have been unyielding for tens of thousands of years. Our loyalty remains the same. This is the duty of our generation, our mission. It is also our glory. Everyone puffed out their chests and said loudly, Yes. This is our glory. We will guard the heavenly layer continent until our deaths. The Dharma Supreme nodded with a sigh. Then, he sighed and said, It's a pity that we are all hot-blooded. If the disparity in our strength is too great, it will ultimately be of no use. Unfortunately, the extraterrestrial demon's divine consciousness attack is also very disadvantageous to me. That attack is simply impossible to guard against. With a solemn face, he said, A few days ago, I went alone to look for the extraterrestrial demon and fought with him. I hoped that I could eliminate the extraterrestrial demon in one fell swoop and pacify the world. Everyone pricked up their ears at the same time. The Dharma Supreme had once fought with the extraterrestrial demon to the death? What was the outcome? Chapter 16-19. At this point, everyone's scalp tingled. They focused their attention and asked, Did Lord Dharma Supreme win? Everyone knew that the Dharma Supreme was the strongest in the world. How could he lose? If he really lost, how could he still be standing here safely? No, I lost that battle. Under everyone's expectant gazes, the Dharma Supreme shook his head and laughed bitterly. And it was a crushing defeat. If not for the fact that I escaped quickly enough, I'm afraid I would have to trouble all of you to collect my corpse by now. A bolt from the blue. This news stunned everyone. The Dharma Supreme actually lost to the extraterrestrial demon? The extraterrestrial demon, how strong was he? If we were to talk about the extraterrestrial demon's martial techniques, they are just so and not necessarily brilliant. However, the extraterrestrial demon's divine consciousness attack is extremely powerful. It is truly unique and unstoppable. In future battles, all of you must be very careful. If you are alone, do not engage in battle at all costs. That will only be courting death. Remember, never! The Dharma Supreme's voice was solemn as he exhorted earnestly. Yes. Everyone was in awe. Don't tell me, we don't have any way to resist the extraterrestrial demon's divine consciousness attack? Ping Xiaoyan asked worriedly as he twirled his beard. Ways. The Dharma Supreme heaved a long sigh. He wanted to say something but stopped. After pausing for a moment, he said, It's not that we don't have any. It's just that this method is more cruel. I don't recommend using it. Look at the situation now. What's there to be afraid of? We are all people who have fought countless battles of life and death. What's there to be afraid of? Having a way to deal with the extraterrestrial demon is better than watching him wreak havoc in the human world. Do we have a way but have to watch him kill us one by one? Ping Xiaoyan said heroically. As long as we can kill the extraterrestrial demon, even if it costs me my life, I won't hesitate. Yes. Dharma Supreme, please give us some pointers. Everyone said excitedly. In order to not become fish meat at the mercy of the extraterrestrial demon, we would rather perish together with the extraterrestrial demon. We don't mind using any method. The Dharma Supreme's eyes flickered, as if he was touched by everyone's righteousness. After pondering for a long time, he let out a long sigh and said bitterly, I once had the opportunity to obtain a mysterious cultivation method. It can allow a person's spiritual energy to completely erupt in a very short period of time, reaching 3 times the original spiritual energy. The effect of this method is very obvious, but the consequences are also very obvious. Martial artists who use this method will never be able to advance their cultivation in the future. Also, the process of breaking through is very painful. If something goes wrong, their life will be in danger. Since there's such a secret technique, we're not afraid. We don't care. We are willing to give it a try. Hearing that one's spiritual energy could be tripled out of thin air, everyone's eyes lit up. Taking a little risk and enduring a little pain was nothing. In fact, everyone had already reached the bottleneck of their cultivation. Everyone was well aware that their chances of breaking through the next step were extremely slim. Since that was the case, what did it matter if his spiritual sense couldn't advance for the rest of his life? If he didn't use this method, he wouldn't even be able to obtain the threefold increase in spiritual energy. As for whether the process would be painful, what was there to be afraid of? The process was just a very short period of time. Even if it was painful, so what? Their lives would be in danger? Everyone was already at this age and was nearing the end of their lives. It was appropriate for them to take a gamble for the sake of the common people today. Everyone didn't hesitate and requested the Dharma Supreme to impart the cultivation method immediately. Only the Dharma Supreme was still hesitating. After pondering for a long time, he finally said, "This cultivation method is really very strange. Moreover, the process requires my assistance. Also, during the cultivation process, everyone's spiritual energy must not have the slightest bit of resistance." He seemed to find it hard to bring up this topic. Ping Xiaoyun laughed and said, "Lord Dharma Supreme, you're thinking too much. Don't we trust the Dharma Supreme? With the Dharma Supreme's help, of course, it's better. Even if the Dharma Supreme didn't mention it, we would still like to ask the Dharma Supreme to protect us. Who would resist the Dharma Supreme's help?" Ha 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 ha. Everyone laughed at the same time, feeling that this topic was very funny. As for what's strange, even if the Dharma Supreme doesn't mention it, I can guess it. Just based on the Dharma Supreme's previous hesitation, I'm already prepared. Ping Xiaoyun said confidently. For anything that can be improved quickly, there's no such thing as a normal cultivation method. It's normal that it's a little strange. If we cultivate step by step like this and have 3 times the spiritual energy, that's really strange. Yes, the Dharma Supreme doesn't have to worry about us. We're willing to cultivate this cultivation method to fight against the extraterrestrial demons. Since that's the case, I'll teach you this cultivation method now. Everyone must endure that painful process, and do your best to fight against the extraterrestrial demons. Deep in the Dharma Supreme's eyes, there was a faint black light flickering, cold and ruthless. However, no one noticed it. No one would believe that the Dharma Supreme, whose name shook the world and who had held the highest authority in the heavens for more than 10,000 years, would actually deliberately harm them. The Dharma Supreme's faint voice sounded. Everyone, the first thing to do when cultivating this cultivation method is to relax your spiritual energy. Close your eyes and hand over all control to me. I will lead everyone to obtain this divine sense energy. Let's do our best for the safety and happiness of all living beings in this world." Under the Dharma Supreme's request, everyone closed their eyes and completely relaxed their spiritual energy. With the highest trust and the greatest sincerity, the Dharma Supreme's eyes quickly turned into a dark color. It was a color darker than the night sky, exuding a dark and gloomy color. The next moment, he waved his hands and with a whoosh sound, balls of demonic aura swarmed out, completely enveloping this small area in an instant. Every high-level expert of the law enforcement officers was individually wrapped in a ball of black fog. In this ball of black fog, everyone could hear the Dharma Supreme's voice speaking to them individually. "Open your eyes, yes, don't be suspicious. It's right here. Relax your mind, we're going to cultivate this cultivation method. In order to break the demonic barrier, we have to make a choice first. Yes, this is a game of choice. Everyone, just treat this experience as a game. Follow your heart to choose and give up. Naturally, you'll be able to reach the other side of your heart. Now, the choice begins." A ball of thick demonic fog surged in the forest, boiling and expanding continuously, as if the extraterrestrial demons were laughing sinisterly. 3 wise men had gathered in the capital region, and the fourth was also on his way. The capital region is right in front, Emotianji said quietly as he stopped in his tracks and looked into the darkness ahead. We didn't find any traces of the extraterrestrial demons here. Chu Yang frowned. Along the way, other than discovering experts killed by the extraterrestrial demons from time to time, the brothers also felt that the world was really about to change. The entire martial world had been completely chaotic during this period of time. It was unprecedentedly chaotic. The degree of chaos had never been seen before. The Heavenly Tripod Convention, which had not been held for a long time, was suddenly held in advance, causing the entire continent to be in an uproar within a day. Almost all the experts were surging towards the capital region from all directions. Along the way, they had already encountered no less than 200 groups of people who were rushing toward them from different forks in the road. Right now, the capital city was almost bursting with people. Although the previous medicine banquet was also quite grand, it was only attended by the well-known pharmacists of the continent, some martial artists from the big clans, law enforcement officers and people from the Medicine Valley. Although there were many who came to watch the show, there weren't too many of them. However, the Heavenly Tripod Convention this time was a convention that concerned the fate and future of all the martial artists in the world. Basically, everyone who felt that they had the ability and could seize the opportunity had come. But then again, who would think that they didn't have enough ability and opportunity? Therefore, regardless of whether they were qualified or not, everyone came together. Who knew, maybe a blind cat would meet a dead mouse and get lucky? There were definitely many who had such thoughts. Also, the Dharma Supreme had given out the token of the law enforcement officers, the World Order, 10 days ago. This was the most supreme token of the law enforcement officers. All the law enforcement officers had to act according to the order. No one dared to disobey it. Not to mention disobeying it, they couldn't even delay it. This token was the symbol of authority. Therefore, all the law enforcement officers above the martial saint level in the world were also rushing towards the capital region like ants moving to a new house. All the big clans were also making their moves. Even the newly established Daewoo clan, which was originally conservative and low-key, was now ready to make a move. All the topics were only left with the 4 words. Heavenly Tripod Convention. All the events were also carried out around Heavenly Tripod Convention. Even the battle in the northwest that had been a hot topic for a while, and the inexplicable destruction of the Sher family, no one mentioned it anymore. The Calamity Sword Master, who had been a hot topic for a long time, was now just an addition to the topic. As for the Dharma Supreme's previous accusation that the Tribulation Sword Master was a heavenly demon, no one brought it up again. The whole world had gone crazy for the upcoming Heavenly Tripod Convention, because the Dharma Supreme had solemnly announced that the Heavenly Tripod Convention this time would be very different from the previous ones. All those who met the requirements would be promoted and given the opportunity to enter the ranks of the law enforcement officers. There wouldn't be so many restrictions like before. All the rules and regulations would be removed. As long as you became a law enforcement officer, you would have the strongest and most solid backing in the world behind you. Chapter 1620. Becoming a law enforcement officer means that you don't have to work so hard and worry about your life. Furthermore, you will have an iron rice bowl and your family will be protected by the law enforcement officers. An iron rice bowl. Oh, my mother! Furthermore, you will be able to jump into a privileged class from then on. Who doesn't want to ride roughshod over others? Who doesn't want to have it? Who doesn't know how to ride roughshod over others? How cool would it be to bully others? Just thinking about it makes me so excited that I'm spasming. I hate corrupt officials. I hate corrupt officials. If I have the chance, I will kill them without mercy. Because I'm just an ordinary person. I have no rights and have never used them. I have never enjoyed the wonderful taste of power. But if I become an official and have power, I will fucking let the sky be high. Who doesn't know how to embezzle and take bribes? Who doesn't know how to fish for benefits? Who doesn't know how to find beautiful wives and concubines? Who doesn't know how to ride roughshod over others and bully others? I know how to do it too. There are definitely many righteous people in this world. However, there are probably even more people with evil thoughts. Every day, they would complain about injustice with righteous indignation. They would complain about this and that. However, if these people who complained really got to the top, they might be even worse and more ruthless than the people they scolded. Envy, jealousy, hatred. Hatred comes last. But envy and jealousy are the source of hatred. No one is an exception. Those who scold the civil servants as evil and ruthless still have to sharpen their brains every year to take the civil servant exam. As for how many of them did it for the noble purpose of benefiting the common people and serving the people, that is unknown. Anyway, it's not easy to be a saint, but it's still easy to say a few words of a saint. Everyone can say the truth. Everyone, no matter if they are good or bad, liar or b*tch, stupid or pretentious, under such a huge temptation, would rush into the fire like moths to moths. Everyone's face was righteous. Everyone's sleeves were clean. They were all open and honest. They were all righteous. In order to become a law enforcement officer, for this heaven-sent opportunity, they would fight. Chu Yang heard a guy proudly reciting, "My whole life, I've been at the bottom of the river. I've suffered all kinds of humiliation and have nowhere to ask for. Today, if I can reach the clouds, I will repay kindness for kindness and take revenge for enmity." With the power of life and death in his hands, how could he be worried about the 1 meter higher sky? I will live in glory, splendor, wealth, and rank, and let his blood flow. Towards such a person, Gu Duxing was unable to restrain his anger and directly strangled him to death after hearing this nonsensical doggerel. This kind of bastard actually wants to strive for a high position. Minister Chu was extremely arrogant. Calm down, calm down. If you want to kill such a person, I'm afraid you'll have to kill at least 1/3 of the people in this world. There will be many fish that will escape the net. And Mo Tianji speechlessly said to Gu Duxing, "Kill them one by one. Kill them one by one. Kill them one by one. There will be a day when all of them will be killed." Gu Duxing said ruthlessly, "You will never be able to kill them all. Even if you tire yourself to death, you will never be able to kill them all. The human heart is restless, and it is difficult to suppress its desires. You can kill people, but can you extinguish the desires of the human heart?" And Mo Tianji was speechless at this guy's stubbornness. While they were resting in a small town, everyone finally experienced the enforcer's propaganda this time. They also knew why the echo was so popular. No wonder it was so popular. If that statement was true, regardless of the outcome, the world would be in chaos for a long time. There are many talents in the heavens. Don't hesitate to enforce the law. Get rid of old rules and seek for good generals. Get rid of old habits and reach the heavenly platform. Then it was how to get rid of old rules and bad habits. How to get rid of talents without sticking to one pattern, and so on. The conditions are so lax. No wonder so many people are scrambling for it. And Mo Tianji looked at Chu Yang. His expression was very complicated and solemn. There was even a hint of fear. It was really rare to see something that could make the divine calculator so fearful. And Mo Tianji truly felt the premonition of great danger towards the Dharma Supreme's actions. How much do you think the heavenly demon can recover before the Tianding Grand Meeting? And Mo Tianji asked softly. Chu Yang looked up at the sky. The Dharma Supreme is so unscrupulous and frenzied in collecting soul energy. I'm afraid. He stopped here. But Mo Tianji already understood that tribulation was likely to face the heavenly demon in his peak condition this time. Even if everyone's strength had increased tremendously, the future was still not optimistic. It might even be very bleak. Now we can only do our best and leave the rest to fate. I hope the heavens will still care for all living beings in the heavens and that the legend of tribulation can still continue. The two of them said almost in unison. The two of them discussed for a while and decided not to reveal their identities or enter the city for the time being. They would wait and see how the situation developed. if the remaining people of the big clan still insisted on being enemies with their brothers. Once they entered the city, they would really be like sheep entering a tiger's den. Even if the situation was different now, they still had to be careful. After all, there were too many experts in the city now. Other than those experts, there were still the Heavenly Demon and the Dharma Supreme lurking nearby. If they were not careful, they would be in great danger. Even if Chu Yang and the rest were very confident, they did not dare to challenge tens of millions of people at the same time. At noon, everyone was drinking tea in a tea stall in the north of the capital. They wore bamboo hats, which not only blocked the sun, but also covered their faces. Everyone paid attention to the pedestrians rushing into the capital and sighed speechlessly. The rallying power of the Dharma Supreme and the law enforcement officers was really terrifying. This place was already very far from the city gate. Usually, it was just an ordinary passage. There were not many people walking on it. Only every few days would there be large groups of people or caravans passing by. But now, it was completely like going to the market. Countless people came from afar with unusually excited faces. They threw down an ingot of silver and drank a bowl of tea to quench their thirst. Then, they continued to rush into the city excitedly. Their faces were full of longing and reverie. It was as if they had already obtained the high position and generous salary of the law enforcement officers. Regarding this, Chu Yang could only sigh. He could only sigh. Fame and fortune were always the strongest desires in the bottom of people's hearts. And the Dharma Supreme used a piece of paper to release all the demons in people's hearts from their cages. Along the way, other than the experts killed by the extraterrestrial demons, there were also countless, tens of millions of corpses. These were all caused by these people who were obsessed with fame and fortune. With one less person, there would be less competition. Far away in the east, there were more carriages coming. From afar, someone sang, "Chariot Lin Lin, horse Xiao Xiao, my heart is higher than the sky, great beauty in my arms, unlimited wealth piled high. If I become a law enforcement officer, I will be free and unfettered. Whoever dares to make a fuss, I will slap him into a bird with one slap." Everyone was dumbstruck. Where did such a supreme being come from? They only heard this person continue to sing, "Dang li dang, speaking of the southeast, my surname is Huang, dang li dang, yellow ah so yellow, a young wolf, this wolf is not that man, a big eater who specializes in eating beauties, dang li dang, bang bang bang, I have a saber in my hand, a sword at my waist, and a spear at my crotch. Beauty, if you don't believe me, you can come and fight with me, dang! Dang! Dang!" Chu Yang turned to look at the right time and couldn't help but be shocked. The people who came were actually acquaintances. What entered his eyes was a sea of yellow clothes, allowing Chu Yang to recognize the origins of these people. Chu Yang still remembered the voice of a male duck, which sounded like it had been smashed in the throat with a stick. So it was this guy. Huang Clan. A skinny yellow-clothed youth was riding on a tall horse, swaying and swaying. His whole body was filled with the aura of a hooligan. His eyes were rolling around, and his hair was withered and yellow. His mouth was still singing loudly. This voice was really something that people who heard it once would never forget for the rest of their lives. Seeing that they were about to get close, a foreigner suddenly came in a hurry. It seemed that he was very thirsty. When he saw that there was a tea stall here, he immediately leaped and flew over. Coincidentally, he swept past the head of this yellow-clothed male horse. The strong horse was unexpectedly startled, and it reared up with a long neigh. The yellow-clothed young man on the horse was caught off guard and didn't have time to react at all. He only had time to let out a scream, and then fell off the horse. Fortunately, the attendant behind him caught him with his spear. That yellow-clothed young man was so scared that his face turned pale. Suddenly, he flew into a rage and shouted, "You bastard, do you not have eyes? Motherfucker, you didn't go out with the eyes on the bridge of your nose, but with the eyes in the groove of your ass? You've startled this young master's horse. Why don't you get your ass over here and wait for a beating? Bastard, I'm always talking about you. I'm talking about you. You bastard, whose whole body is like the color of feces that have been sunk for 3 days. You motherfucker, why don't you stand up and kowtow to apologize? Look at your bird body, you're not even as tall as sitting. Motherfucker, are you actually a dog in your bones? This arrogance and despotism was truly at home. GMO and Luo Kudi revealed a rare look of admiration on their faces. This scolding was really good. What's more, it matched with his body. The person sitting down was somewhat deformed. His legs were especially short, but his upper body was unexpectedly slender. When he sat down, he was indeed taller than when he was standing. Second Master Ji and Second Master Luo were already known as the ancestors of scolding people, but their level of scolding and viciousness was really not on the same level as this yellow-clothed young man in front of them. It was true that the strong always had strong people behind them, and the capable always had strong people behind them. How could these two not be impressed? That person had just picked up a cup of tea and drank it to moisten his throat when he heard the scolding, and it was so unpleasant to hear. He immediately flew into a rage and turned around, scolding. Little bastard, so what if I startled your horse? Are you looking for death by speaking so rudely? Chapter 16:21. That person's face was distorted, but he was still afraid of offending the big shot. He gritted his teeth and asked, "Who are you?" "I'm Huang Xiaoliu." The yellow-clothed young man roared with saliva splattering everywhere. He said ferociously, "Have you heard of Huang Gong? I'm Huang Xiaoliu. I'm Huang Xiaoliu." "Who's Huang Xiaoliu?" Everyone around began to discuss in low voices. Were they too ignorant and inexperienced? But it seems that we really haven't heard of any expert with this name. Upon hearing that, that person said angrily, "I don't care if you're Huang Xiaoliu or Huang Xiaoliu. How dare you scold me? Do you know who I am?" Someone at the side had already started to laugh. This guy is really stupid. Based on his behavior and his surname, he must be a descendant of the Huang clan in the southeast region. He must be the only Grand Duke of the Huang clan. This person actually doesn't even know the Huang clan, which is famous in the southeast region. He's probably a hothead who came out from some corner. He doesn't even have the basic judgment. He's going to suffer a loss today. Huang Gong was unable to restrain his anger as he shouted, "Enough, enough, enough, enough! Damn it, there's actually someone who hasn't heard of me. It's obvious that I'm ignorant. In the martial world, even if I don't have the ability, I still need to have knowledge. Even if I don't have knowledge, I still need to have common sense. This is simply an insult to me. Guards, catch this ignorant bastard. I'm going to manipulate him personally. If I don't do it 1,000 times, today's matter won't be over." The two yellow-clothed men at the side responded. Their figures were steady and dignified. Their gazes were like lightning. Obviously, they were first-class experts. Seeing this, that person instantly panicked and retreated continuously. You actually dare to hit me in broad daylight?" Huang Xiaoliu laughed strangely. "It seems that I've underestimated your ignorance. I've even abducted women in broad daylight. Can I hit you? Not to mention that you're a man, even if you're a woman who's not pretty, I'll hit you too. Capture him for this duke." These words were truly unreasonable to the extreme. The level of a foppish young master had obviously risen to an amazing level. While they were talking, the two martial saints had already caught that person. Huang Xiaoliu shouted, "Catch him! Hold on tight, don't let him move! This duke wants to have a fair fight with him, a fight to the death, so that he won't say that I bullied him." As he spoke, he was about to leap forward. His words rendered everyone speechless. First, he captured the other party and didn't allow him to move at all. Then, he would have a fair one-on-one fight with the other party to the death. This is a little too fair. Could you be any fairer? What Dong Wusheng hated the most in his life was this kind of despicable act of bullying men and tyrannizing women. He slammed the table. He was about to stand up and speak up. "She was just passing by in front of you. To be fair, she didn't offend you. Why is it that you want to sentence her to death? He actually wanted to make hundreds and thousands of different shapes. Let's not talk about putting it on display. If I just asked you to think about it, would you be able to think of it? But before Dong Wushang could stand up. I say, that Huang Gong, he said. You little Huang Gong are really awesome now. TSK, hundreds and thousands of different shapes. Are you sure you can make all of them? Do you want me to help you? As soon as this was said, the people from the Huang clan glared at him. There were quite a lot of people from the Huang clan this time, and there were quite a lot of experts. Not only were there martial saints, there were even a few supreme martial artists. At this moment, they all turned their heads to look. That joint pressure was simply frightening. Only Huang Xiaolugong was startled when he heard the arrogant voice. He was completely stunned. Then, he suddenly let out a strange cry. Ah, why is it you? Why are you here? The person who spoke was Chu Yang. The brothers hadn't heard Chu Yang speak in such a tone before, so they didn't realize it in time. Oh my God, how can Boss Chu speak like that? Could it be that he didn't take the wrong medicine or took fake medicine? Chu Yang smiled. If you can be here, why can't I be here? I'm still thinking of treating your illness. It's fine if I'm in a good mood. If I'm in a bad mood, I'll just beat you back to your original state. Upon hearing that, Huang Xiaoliu screamed again. Then, he rushed down towards Chu Yang's side. He shouted along the way. Master! Oh, my uncle! Oh, my dear uncle, you! All the experts from the Huang clan were in a mess. Who's this person who's wearing a big bamboo hat? Is he the elder brother of the clan master? Otherwise, why is our master calling him dear uncle in such a flattering manner? However, although this person's movements were strange and a little old-fashioned, why didn't his voice sound old? Instead, it sounded a little young? No, it's definitely not strange. A certain king of hell doesn't seem old. He's only a few years older than most of the young people. It's really strange if he's old. The tone of that dear uncle turned amiable. He seemed to be very concerned as he asked, How are you now? Are you feeling better now? Is the medicine tasty? Do you want to take it again? It's also good to consolidate the effect. Huang Xiaolugong shook his head impatiently, like a pug wagging its tail in front of its master. He said in an extremely nauseating tone, Oh, sir. I'm really fine now. I really don't need to take that medicine anymore. I really don't need it anymore. I can show you my thing. I'm really fine now. I'm fine. Thinking of the feeling when he took the medicine, Huang Xiaoliu couldn't help but burst into tears. That was simply not a day for humans to live. Chu Yang sneered. Are you really recovered? But when I came out, I saw you bullying others. I think you have quite a big problem, especially your liver. It's very vigorous. This is an illness. No. I don't dare to do that. I'm just playing with that big brother. Huang Xiaoliu ran back like a fast horse that was slapped in the butt. He hurriedly rescued his brother who was being controlled. He bowed and said, Hero, brother, big brother. I'm in the wrong just now. I've offended you. I'm very sorry to you. Please forgive me. I beg you, please be merciful and spare me. Treat me as a fart and let me go. Please let me go. That person was baffled and stared blankly at him. What was he talking about? Who's this person? What's going on? Oh my God! Someone said that I bullied you. Alas, forget it. If you're really not angry, you can bully me now. Quickly bully me with all your might. Huang Xiaoliu said enthusiastically. You can bully me in any way you like. You can do it in any way. If you can't think of anything, I'll help you. That person fainted instantly. Bully you? You're begging me to bully you. What's going on? Seeing that the other party still didn't speak, Huang Xiaoliu was really anxious. He begged, I'm already in this state. Why are you still trying to bully me? I'm really begging you. Quickly bully me. Why don't you scold me back? You can scold me back. As long as you don't hit my private part, you can hit anywhere. As long as you forgive me. That person shook his head and came back to his senses. Just now, when the subordinate of the other party attacked, he was captured alive. He didn't even have the chance to struggle or resist. How could he not know that he had met a tough opponent? How could he dare to be rash? If it wasn't for the sudden appearance of the other party's grandfather who taught that playboy a lesson, he might really be dead now. He was already very lucky that the other party was willing to settle the matter peacefully. How would he dare to find trouble with Huang Xiaoliu now? He said, "Forget it. This matter originated from me. I'm also in the wrong." Huang Xiaoliu was overjoyed. He said gratefully, "Hero, big brother. You're a good person. A very, very good person." He generously gave out a good person card and sent that person away. Then, he rushed to Chu Yang like a gust of wind. He bowed slightly, stretched his neck forward and lifted his chin. "Grandfather." "He he he. Look, it's all right now. I don't have any anger. Everyone saw that a moment ago, this person was arrogant, domineering, and lawless. But in the blink of an eye, he was like a tortoise. It didn't take much effort for him to switch sides. There wasn't even the slightest bit of psychological conflict." All the brothers gasped in amazement. "He's really a talent. How can GMO be compared to him?" This guy had obviously raised his shamelessness to a high and profound level that people could only look up to him in awe. Looking at the world today, there were really few people who could be compared to him. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's a weirdo in the universe. I'm ashamed of my inferiority. Well, you've done well. Those who are broad-minded will be cured of all illnesses. Chu Yang nodded and praised. Really? Huang Xiaoliu jumped up and laughed. He 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 he. GMO was dumbfounded for a long time. Finally, he couldn't help but say, "Hey, you bastard! You're really shameless. Do you still have any face?" Huang Xiaoliu raised his head and said proudly, "Face? What's face? My lifelong happiness is in my grandfather's hands. Do I still dare to be shameless in front of him? If my grandfather says this is my face, then it's my face. If my grandfather says this is my ass, then it's my ass." As he said to Chu Yang with an extremely flattering face, "Grandfather, am I right? It doesn't matter if it's wrong. Anyway, I'll do whatever you say." Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He glared at him and scolded. "Get lost! He he, if you ask me to get lost, then I'll get lost. I'll get lost right now without any hesitation." As he said, he curled up his body on the ground and muttered, "If my grandfather asks me to get lost, then I'll get lost perfectly. Not only do I want to get lost, I want to get lost in a cool and beautiful way. I want to get lost in a lofty and majestic way." Chapter 16:22. Forget it. I asked you to scram, and you really scram. Your left cheek must have been smeared on your right cheek. One side is shameless, and the other side is shameless. Stop right there, or else I'll always lose face with you. Chu Yang shook his head speechlessly and scolded jokingly. Then I won't scram. I can't make you lose face. Huang Xiaoliu laughed. Awesome. This person is really awesome. Not only did GMO and the others want to burst out laughing, even a calm person like Mo Tianji and a cold face like Gu Duxing couldn't help but reveal a look of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Such a person was rarely seen even in the entire heaven. He was really unique and unrivaled in the world. He did not know how Chu Yang had dealt with a mortal back then, to actually be able to make this obviously tyrannical and arrogant fellow so obedient. He was really more obedient than a mouse when it saw a cat. No, a mouse would at most be terrified when it saw a cat. Because the mouse would die. That guy had been trained by Chu Yang, and he would definitely suffer a fate worse than death. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said lightly, Are you going to enter the city? Are you here to participate in the law enforcement officers' Tianding Grand Meeting? Yes. You're wise. You're discerning. Old Duke Huang's head was like a chicken pecking rice. We're on the same path. Is it convenient for me to follow your team in? Chu Yang asked again. He still spoke casually. However, there was a lot of information in this. Since anyone could enter now, why would he follow the Huang clan's team in? He obviously didn't want to expose himself. But why? What was the meaning behind this? In such a sensitive martial world, everyone knew what such a sneaky act meant. If Chu Yang and the others went in, it would be fine if nothing happened. But if something happened, the Huang clan would definitely be implicated. Don't be fooled by Grand Duke Huang's arrogant, despotic, and insufferably arrogant behavior. It was as if the heavens were the boss and he was second in command. No, it was Chu Yang who was second in command and he was third in command, but to be honest, Grand Duke Huang didn't seem to be much of a character. Not to mention him, even the entire Huang family was at best a second-rate aristocratic family. The truly powerful figures wouldn't even put them in their eyes. For example, law enforcers or aristocratic families could easily destroy them with a wave of their hand. Grand Duke Huang might not have such self-awareness, but the people around him had quite a lot of experience. Since these people wanted to go in like this, how could they not cause trouble? Although this was only a guess, the probability of this guess being true was quite high. Once this group of people started to cause trouble, it didn't matter whether they had the ability to cause trouble, or whether they would be able to escape unscathed in the end. Even if all of them were to stay in the capital, the Huang family would definitely suffer. Thinking of this, the few experts of the Huang family all looked solemn. Some of them even winked at Huang Xiaoliu, hinting that he mustn't agree to this. But Huang Xiaoliu didn't seem to have thought of anything. He patted his chest and said heroically, "Okay. Why not? If that person dares to say no, I'll castrate him and feed him to the dogs." As he said, he turned around and looked at the Huang family's expert who was winking at him. He said furiously, "What's wrong with you? Why are you winking? Is there something wrong with your eyes? Could it be that you've taken a fancy to me and are winking at me? I don't have that kind of hobby. Ugh, are you trying to disgust me to death?" That Huang family's expert was dumbfounded. He didn't understand the meaning of his young master's words at first. But after thinking carefully, he almost vomited. There was always a saying of fate between people. A person's fate was the most unpredictable. You didn't know when you met someone, but it could change your life's fate, or even the fate of your family, or even the fate of an entire race. Huang Xiaoliu was a genuine super profligate. Just because of a chance and a casual promise, he changed his clan's fate. Under Huang Xiaoliu's insistence, Chu Yang and the others successfully integrated into the Huang clan's troop, and entered the capital in a grandiose manner. Along the way, the masters of the Huang family only heard their master whispering something in the ear of the mysterious biological master, which made them even more confused. "I heard that you're the legendary grandpa?" "Yes." Chu Yang nodded without leaving a trace. "Oh my, grandpa, my biological grandpa!" Huang Xiaoliu's face flushed with excitement. "I really didn't expect to meet you here. You're my biological grandpa." The Huang family's experts at the side were even more confused. "Grandpa Wan? Legendary grandpa? Biological grandpa? Damn it, what's going on? Could it be that there's an elder brother above the clan master? The clan master is actually the 10th brother? But as far as we know, the clan master is the eldest brother. How come there's an elder brother out of nowhere? This isn't just a normal mess. That grandpa speaks with a certain accent, but his voice is still quite tender? Could it be that he was born like this? Today, it's an eye-opener for me again." The capital was really bustling at this moment. On the streets, any random street seemed to be going to a market. People were coming and going in an endless stream. But the people who were going to the market this time were very different from ordinary people. Everyone was carrying swords and sabers. They were all experts. All kinds of auras collided with each other. Everyone's aura was surging. Under such an atmosphere, anyone would be extremely cautious. Most people were sighing. This Tianding Grand Meeting is definitely the most dangerous experience I've ever had in my life. There's no other experience like this in the past, and I believe that there won't be any in the future. No matter when, there are experts in front of and behind me. There are experts who are stronger than me, weaker than me, and much stronger than me. There are so many of them. Often, when there's a wrong look in their eyes, two people who don't know each other would draw their swords and fight each other. The onlookers didn't feel any fuss at all. Instead, they all watched with great interest. When someone dies, a puddle of corpse-dissolving powder will turn into a puddle of yellow water. Then, a basin of water will be poured out from the shops on both sides of the road, washing away everything. At most, it would only be a wisp of yellow smoke rising into the sky. This was the last trace of that Jianghu expert, including those overlords who had run amok in the outside world. In this place, there were supreme martial artists everywhere, and martial saints were everywhere. Those below martial saints were worse than dogs. The law enforcement officers who were supposed to maintain order here were nowhere to be seen. No one knew where they were hiding. On the other hand, the Yi clan, as the landlord, didn't care about killing people on the street. It was these two sides in action that caused this situation to become more and more intense. As Chu Yang and the others walked in, they could hear screams and curses everywhere. Along the way, they had walked less than 3,000 feet into the downtown area, but they had already seen more than 10 fights. It was normal for people to die in every fight. It was rare to see no blood. What are you looking at? Are you looking for death? You're the one looking for death. What's wrong with you? Motherfucker, take my sword. Damn it. Take my sword. Swish, bang, 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 ah. Plop, sizzle, sizzle, hua. Swish, swish. Was the sound of swords slashing through the air. Bang, bang. Was the sound of collisions. Ah. Was the scream of a loser. Plop. Was the sound of a corpse falling to the ground. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. It was the corpse dissolving powder that was melting the corpse. Finally, a basin of water was splashed over, washing away the traces on the ground. This was a gradual process of familiarity, or rather, it was an inevitable, normal, and most ordinary process. Just like in life, there was life and there was death. It was just that in this place, life and death had been shortened to a few steps and sounds. This wasn't a very long journey. After walking a few steps, one could hear swish, bang, ah, plop, sizzle, hua, the capital city. Because of the summons, all the martial artists in the world came to the capital city with the most perfect and beautiful dreams. At this moment, the entire city was a natural arena where the strong preyed on the weak. Survival of the strong. Survival of the strong. These few words, the cruel law of the martial world, were most vividly displayed here. The crowd, especially the martial artists who had superhuman abilities, was like a group of ferocious beasts that were all locked in a huge cage. Many ferocious people took the opportunity to make a fortune by virtue of their high cultivation. They casually caught one of them and didn't care whether this guy had any enmity with them. Did they know each other? After killing him, they began to search him unhurriedly. If they found money and treasures, they would put them into their arms. Of course, if they found something good and the surrounding people were envious of it, then there would be a sudden chaotic battle without warning. In such a chaotic situation, of course, more people would die. But in this place, at this moment, it was already nothing. The lives of those martial artists were as cheap as cabbages that had encountered a super bumper harvest in the capital city at this moment. They might not even be worth as much as cabbages. Even if cabbages were cheap, they would still be worth some money. However, those martial artists who lost their lives seemed to be worthless. Tribulation and the others followed Huang Xiaoliu all the way here. Undoubtedly, they had to deal with a lot of things. He was already confident that he had a large number of martial artists following him. At this moment, with Chu Yang and the others joining in, this unruly guy became even more fearless. However, under Chu Yang's strict order, those really innocent people didn't dare to move. Only those martial artists who made a fortune by making a fortune in the chaos met with Huang Xiaoliu. Of course, this was a great opportunity for Huang Xiaoliu to make a fortune. Hey, I'm talking about you. Come over here. You killed someone in front of me just now. I'm timid and scared. Come over and compensate me. Fuck! Not coming over? Come on, kill him. Let him kill people casually. Let's see if his descendants still dare to kill people casually. Chapter 16:23. Hey, why are you looking at me like that? Do you have any ulterior motives towards this young master? Quickly come over here and kneel down to apologize. What? Not coming over? How dare you scold me? Fuck! Kill him! How dare you scold me? Who do you think you are to scold me? Swish swish, bang bang, ah plop, tss 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 splash. Hey, that old fart, are you having fun robbing people? As the saying goes, everyone has a share. Come, give me half of it. What? Disobedient? Fuck, kill him. If you don't give me half, then I'll take it all. If you don't want to give me money, then I'll give you my life. Whoosh, whoosh, bang. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Great Lord, I can't take it anymore. Great Lord, please save me. He had hit a wall this time. There was no doubt that Duke Huang had brought quite a number of experts with him. There were even a few Supreme Being level experts. Generally speaking, those who could make Duke Huang cry out so miserably were at least third-grade Supreme Beings and above. Every time this happened, GMO and Luo Kudi would make a move as if they were afraid that the world would not be in chaos. As for the others, they definitely wouldn't make a move. Even Mo Layer, who was the weakest, couldn't be bothered with them. They were all true experts at the peak of the higher levels. If they still had to make a move on these low-level cultivators, it would really be an unfair victory. In this situation, only GMO and Luo Kudi, these two fellows, had no awareness of being supreme martial artists. With their current strength, they could really kill the cultivator in front of them with just a puff of air. Therefore, bang bang ah plop, tss 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 hua. Where are we going to stay? Hee hee. Don't worry, sir. Our family also has properties here. We even have an inn. I've already instructed the inn not to receive any guests during the Heavenly Tripod Convention. So, I've specially left some lives for us. Oh, so that's how it is. How thoughtful of you. Hee hee, you're too kind. I didn't praise you. Why are you being so modest? I'm just being narcissistic. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji were walking in the dark. They were talking as they walked. Of course, the two of them were using sound transmission techniques. After all, it was very noisy. So, it wasn't convenient to talk in a normal way. Have you found anything? No. That's strange. It shouldn't be this chaotic. Even if the Dharma Supreme did something on the side of the law enforcement officers and allowed the martial artists to go against each other, the Yi clan shouldn't be doing nothing. Such a situation can only be said to be intentional indulgence. It's not only the law enforcers, but also the Yi family and the other big clans. Indulge? Yes. In fact, as long as you use your divine sense to probe, you will know that in places where people have died, after a period of time, the soul's strength will suddenly disappear and be swept clean. You mean, the heavenly demon is actually in the city now? Or even continuing the action? That should be the case. But why haven't the people of the great clans done anything? Especially since the people of the Yi clan did not appear. As the local tyrant, they should have already been suspicious of this meeting, right? It's impossible for them to not notice any clues at all. But now, they're letting it go. Why is that? I think the Yi clan can't even take care of themselves now. They might as well not spend their energy on these small matters. Other things are rare in the heavenly layer, but martial artists are the least rare. It should be the same for the other big clans. That makes sense, but it's a bit of a generalization. If you want to talk about the whole situation. Haha, the Yi clan and the other big clans should have already discovered the existence of the heavenly demon and the danger it poses. But the heavenly demon is still hiding in the dark. Without a target, they can't do anything. So, they can only wait for the heavenly demon to appear and gather everyone to attack, hoping to kill it in one blow. The chaos in the capital now may be the best way to deal with the heavenly demon. Yes, that's right. Just from the sudden appearance of so much corpse-dissolving powder, it shows that the Yi clan has long been prepared. They also have a backup plan for such a chaotic situation. Yes, this also shows that the big clans have now taken the heavenly demon as their number one enemy. You, the master of the Calamity Sword, even if they haven't completely eliminated you from their sights, at least you're no longer their number one enemy. Haha, the world is changing. I'm afraid they won't be able to deal with us in time. Tianji, this time, we might be able to cooperate with the big clans. I'm afraid it's not possible. Based on the current situation, cooperation is almost inevitable. But if we want to cooperate, we should be careful not to be used as cannon fodder. Whether we succeed or not, we must maintain secrecy and independence. If we fail, we must flee thousands of miles away. That's right. That's what I was thinking. Let's wait and see for now. Now that the chaos has arisen, we can't stop it even if we tire ourselves to death. After a difficult journey, they finally found the inn belonging to the Huang clan. At this moment, countless people of the martial world were gathered around the inn, shouting and cursing. Since you're doing business, why don't you let people stay? Isn't the old man's money? You'd rather leave the room empty than let people stay. What's the meaning of this? We're living in an inn with real money. Why do you refuse? You've already booked it? The person who booked it hasn't arrived yet. What's wrong with us staying for a few days? Everyone charge in. It's more important to have a room to stay. The situation was hanging by a thread. There were a lot of inns in the capital, but they definitely couldn't withstand the gathering of people from all over the world. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the inn was like a drop in the bucket when faced with the current crowd. Disperse. Under Duke Huang's command, the guards of the Huang clan immediately took action. Ah, it hurts. Who pushed me? Who is it? Such a powerful aura. In just a short while, everyone had already arrived at the entrance of the inn. Huang Xiaoyou stood on the carriage with his hat crooked and said proudly, "This inn was booked by me first. Now I'm going to stay here. If anyone doesn't agree, come and drive me out. As long as you have the ability, don't blame yourself for being unlucky. If you don't have the ability and die here, then you can only blame yourself for being unlucky and not complain. As for regret, leave it to the later generations." Along with Duke Huang's extremely arrogant words, there was an uproar. Fuck! He's too awesome! He's too extravagant! Go! Everyone kill him! Everyone, spit at him and drown him! However, as the crowd rushed up, a large number of people fell down instantly. After a short while, some people were already retreating. Because these people were like demons, especially the two youngsters at the front. They were even more demonic than demons. Their strength was so powerful that it was inhumane. They weren't humans at all. Chu Yang and the others naturally stayed in the best 11 rooms, which just happened to occupy the entire floor. Huang Xiaoyu originally wanted to stay in the 12th room on this floor, but he was kicked upstairs by Chu Yang. The reason was, "We have female members here. What's the matter with you, an outsider staying here?" Duke Huang could only return to his room with tears in his eyes and hug his wife to sleep. "Duke, who are these people?" Along the way, the Huang clan's experts almost didn't have a chance to talk to Huang Xiaoyu. Now, they finally seized the opportunity to ask him the biggest question in their hearts. Humph. They're all immortals. Huang Xiaoyu raised his head and said arrogantly. Immortals, Che. A Huang clan's expert whispered. What kind of people can make us treat them so courteously? Huang Xiaoyu stared at them, but the next moment he sighed. All right, I'll tell you the truth, otherwise if you guys offend them, I won't even have a place to cry. I've used up all my treasures to gather these powerful people together. Ever since I had a son, my father doesn't care about me anymore. But I can't let him have no place to cry. Everyone didn't know whether to laugh or cry. During this period of time, the clan master had really put all his energy on the two little grandsons. It's reasonable that he doesn't pay much attention to you. This guy actually has complaints. Besides, why should he pay attention to you? You're just a playboy who commits all kinds of evil. What's the use of that? Previously, your only use was to make babies. Now, even this isn't very useful. Do you still remember my illness? Huang Xiaoliu raised his eyebrows. Yes. Then, do you still remember who cured me? It's Elder Chu, Divine Dr. Chu. The Huang clan's experts all became serious. Later on, we heard that Elder Chu is the rumored tribulation sword master. Another saying is that he's the incarnation of the extraterrestrial demon. I don't know which one is true. Pooh, what extraterrestrial demon? I only have the identity of the tribulation sword master. Remember it clearly. Huang Xiaoliu looked up. The one who spoke is the one who cured me back then, that is. As for the 10 or so people around him, you can think about who they are. Oh my God, so... With a plop, a Huang clan's supreme martial artist was so shocked that he directly tilted his chair and fell to the ground awkwardly. But he only felt surprised and didn't feel any pain at all. Oh my God! Oh my God! Everyone sighed in shock, and their eyes shone with extreme excitement. Everyone had the same thought. Their hearts were beating violently. The Tribulation Sword Master. The Tribulation Sword Master and his brothers. Oh my God, we're actually on the same side as the Tribulation Sword Master, and we're even living together now. We're basically on the same side. My lord, my dear lord. Everyone instantly understood the meaning of Huang Xiaoliu's question. I heard that you're the lord? They finally understood. The lord is actually such a lord, it's really worth it to recognize that person as the lord. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.